Chapter 690. Hello, welcome. How can I help you? As soon as he entered the Sea Demon Guild, which looked like a coral, Lin Yuan heard the greetings of the staff. The interior of the restaurant was arranged like a tavern. Groups of 2 or 3 sea monsters were scattered around the tables inside. They were either chatting or eating heartily. A small number of them were yelling about forming teams to complete missions, and the like. The Sea Demon Guild was the most powerful force in the entire Endless Sea. Even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas couldn't be compared with the Sea Demon Guild. Because the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas represented the dragon bloodline sea monsters, it could only be regarded as the most powerful group of sea monsters. However, the Sea Demon Guild represented the entire sea monster system. Any existence that was an enemy of the Sea Monster Guild was equivalent to declaring war on the entire Endless Sea. However, unlike the Demon Emperor Association in the northern frontier that was completely controlled by Lin Yuan, the Sea Demon Guild was just a nominal organization. The original organizer had passed away. To this day, there was no sign of any force. Any sea monster could entrust a mission to the Sea Demon Guild, and then the Sea Demon Guild would entrust the mission to a suitable person to carry out the mission. A simple bounty board could mobilize all the monsters in the entire sea for one's own use. Such a force could undoubtedly destroy the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, the Sea Demon Guild didn't have the ability to integrate the forces scattered in the Endless Sea, so it was just a nominal organization. Even many members of the Dragon Clan belonged to the Sea Demon Guild. As long as the common interests of the members of the Sea Demon Guild were not violated, there was no need to worry about this bomb being detonated. Of course, provoking such an existence was definitely more terrifying than provoking the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. I'm here to register as a member. Lin Yuan nodded to the octopus monster standing behind the counter, and said expressionlessly. The Siren Guild did not have much cohesion, so there were almost no requirements for new members. As long as they were sea monsters and were willing to contribute to the guild, there would be no problem. There would not be any background checks. Even an unregistered member like Lin Yuan could join the Siren Guild as long as he had the strength. After completing a few missions, he could become an official guild member. At the same time, the identity of being a member of the Sea Monster Guild was an excellent identity card. After all, it was a huge organization. No one in the Endless Sea would be stupid enough to find trouble with the members of the Sea Monster Guild. After all, there were countless members of the Sea Monster Guild, regardless of whether they were powerful or had high positions. If you found trouble with the members of the Sea Monster Guild, then don't blame others for finding trouble with you. The octopus monster paused for a moment when it heard the word member. Then it smiled politely and said, "The prerequisite for becoming a member of our guild in a foreign land is that you must be a river lord. I wonder." The Endless Sea was very big. Every day, countless sea beasts were born or died. However, no matter how turbulent the place was, it was nothing in the entire Endless Sea. Most of the sea beasts might not even step out of the sea area where they were born in their entire lives. The Willowstone Sea was also one of the oldest sea areas. The sea monster clans that settled here were almost fixed. Therefore, after Lin Yuan activated the Golden Body secret art, his flood dragon appearance that was covered with golden scales became more and more conspicuous. At first glance, it was obvious that he was not a local sea monster. Therefore, the octopus monster asked this question. When one's cultivation reached the River Lord level, although it was not enough to walk unhindered in every sea area, it was definitely a mainstay. When one's cultivation reached this level, even the ruler of a sea area would have to treat them with respect. If there was no big trouble, they would not go to other sea areas. After all, who would be willing to leave their home if they could become a big shot at their own home? Moreover, the Sea Monster Guild was spread all over the Endless Sea. If one joined the Sea Monster Guild in the place where they were born, there was no need to check one's cultivation. They just had to say hello and that was it. When they returned, they would receive a member's seal to prove their identity. If one was interested in joining the Sea Monster Guild, they would not wait until their cultivation had reached the River Lord level before going to another sea area to join. Lin Yuan was obviously a foreign monster. If he wanted to join the Sea Monster Guild, then he was obviously in big trouble. If he really had a River Lord level cultivation, then he was not someone a small staff member like the octopus could make the decision. It was a good opportunity to throw the blame away. Cultivation? Late-stage River Lord level. That should be enough. Lin Yuan did not seem to see the complex expression in the octopus monster's eyes. He directly revealed his aura. Almost instantly, the weaker demonic beasts nearby couldn't help but tremble. Although the upper limit of the Endless Sea's martial strength was very high, it did not mean that all monsters were born with great power. Only monsters in foreign lands needed to be tested to register as a member, but local monsters did not need to. Thus, most of the monsters present had not yet reached the River Lord level. Most of them were in the Wisdom and Lightning realm, and there were even a few in the Spirit Awakening realm. There were no mountains in the Endless Sea, so they naturally did not call them Mountain Lords. Instead, they called them River Lords. However, Lin Yuan did not understand why a group of Sea Kings would call him River Lord. Perhaps only demonic kings could be considered Sea Kings? Alright, I've already roughly determined your cultivation base. Please retract your aura. River Lord level experts usually carry out missions alone. They will only come to the guild stronghold to hand in missions. Thus, your aura will have a big impact on the other members here. I will report your situation to the headquarters, but I cannot give you a reply on whether you can register as a member or not. However, before the headquarters reply, I will arrange food and accommodation for you according to the standards of a River Lord level member. The octopus monster nodded at Lin Yuan with a complicated expression. Late-stage River Lord level with a powerful aura. It was clearly not just for show. It was only one step away from the demonic king level. For such an existence to suddenly want to join the Sea Demon Guild, there was clearly a lot of trouble behind it. Although the Sea Monster Guild was a big organization, and they weren't afraid of anyone in the Endless Sea, it didn't seem like a creature with normal intelligence to protect someone for no reason. Therefore, it still needed time to observe and determine what kind of trouble this strange demon beast was carrying. Only then could it decide whether to absorb it or not. Sorry to trouble you. Lin Yuan nodded slightly and said politely. This was within his expectations. However, although his appearance had not changed, his scales had turned from black to gold. Compared to the black Jiao from before, it was more believable to say that they were two different species. Thus he was not in a hurry. Chapter 691. Please come with me. The octopus monster summoned a colleague to take his place, and then took the initiative to walk out from behind the counter. Although it was not sure whether to recruit Lin Yuan for the time being, he had the cultivation of the late-stage River Lord after all. If he went one step further, and became the ruler of a sea area, even the higher-ups of the Siren Guild would have to contact him, and strive to open a branch in the sea area he controlled. Therefore, no matter what the result was, the Siren Guild would try not to offend him. Lin Yuan did not speak and just silently followed behind the octopus monster. By the way, I forgot to mention that the members of the Siren Guild have a classification system, from black iron to diamond. Outsiders judge the members' level by the material of the identity seal. For example, those who take out the black iron seal are black iron members. This type of member has the lowest authority. For example, for the same mission, a higher-level member has priority over a black iron member. In addition to the priority of the mission, this authority also includes the treatment of the Siren Guild itself. For example, for a mission, the employer will give 10 Eastern Pearls as a reward. Black iron members will take 60% of the reward. Bronze members will take 50%. If it is a diamond member, the Siren Guild will not take any commission. After all, a mission that requires a diamond member to take action can be said to be a threat to the entire Endless Sea. This level of mission is usually directly issued by the guild to the diamond members, and the remuneration is also directly paid by the guild. In addition to the treatment, there is also the intelligence authority. Different intelligence is classified into different levels, and the corresponding intelligence can only be accessed by the corresponding level. If it is a black iron member, he can only access the first level intelligence and has to pay a considerable price. However, diamond members are different from other members. Not only do they have the right to access all the intelligence, but the guild will also take the initiative to provide additional intelligence. As the octopus monster walked, It introduced some basic knowledge to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and almost opened his mouth, but no words came out. He always felt that this guy seemed to be hinting at something. In other words, it had been deliberately touting the benefits of being a diamond member and constantly guiding Lin Yuan to be a diamond member. But soon, Lin Yuan figured out the crux of the matter. After all, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was now being troubled by the Great Old Ones. Then, it was impossible for the Siren Guild, which was also a behemoth, to not know about the appearance of the Great Old Ones. An opponent of this level could obviously threaten the entire Endless Sea. It seemed that the Siren Guild was also lacking in combat power. If it were any other time, the Siren Guild would never say such things. After all, it was such a huge organization. Even if it was a guild, the necessary expenses could not be that low. They were counting on the mission rewards from the low-level members to continue the existence of the guild. How could they persuade the new members to level up as soon as possible? Lin Yuan, in particular, was a late-stage river lord. He was practically the perfect fighter. If he remained a Black Iron member for the rest of his life, the Siren Guild's upper echelons would probably wake up laughing from their dreams. We're here. The octopus monster led Lin Yuan to a building that also looked like a coral stone and said in a deep voice, "This is one of the reserve bases prepared by our guild. Because it hasn't been used for a long time, we've been ordered to make it look like a hotel to receive you or guild members who come from other sea regions to carry out missions. But for now, you're the only one staying here. The others are all carrying out missions outside. Even if they come back, they rarely come here to rest." At this point, it changed the topic and continued. Wherever the Siren Guild exists, there will be such hotels. In the future, if you go to other sea regions to carry out missions, you can contact the local staff. They will take you to rest. Okay. Lin Yuan nodded again to show that he understood. After a while, Lin Yuan said slowly, "Although I don't know why, I feel that you seem to believe that I can become a member of the Siren Guild. That's why you're telling me this, isn't it?" The octopus monster did not show any abnormal expression. It just nodded slightly and said, "Something has happened in the Endless Sea. Now high-level combat power can be said to be a scarce resource. If you're willing to join, it's actually our honor." But, before it finished speaking, the octopus monster put on a serious expression and said in a deep voice, "The upper echelons are thirsty for top-level combat power. If you really want to join us, the upper echelons will not reject you. However, if a powerhouse like you suddenly wants to join the Siren Guild, there will definitely be a lot of trouble behind it. The upper echelons need time to observe. After all, the current situation is not stable. Even the Siren Guild does not want to go to war with other forces easily." Okay. Lin Yuan did not comment on the octopus monster's words. He just nodded perfunctorily. Anyway, the West Sea Dragon Palace could not enter the Willowstone region unscrupulously. Otherwise, the lobster in the Willowstone region would attack the members of the West Sea Dragon Palace crazily without needing him to do anything. If he just waited for a while, Lin Yuan didn't think that any trouble would come to him. After he joined the Siren Guild and became a member with a high level, even if the West Sea Dragon Palace knew his identity, they would have to think twice before making a move on him. Although the Siren Guild was loose, if you bullied them, the members of the Siren Guild would not let it go. After all, who knew if the member who was bullied today would be himself tomorrow? Okay, then that's it. I'll ask someone to send you a registration form later. The octopus monster led Lin Yuan to his room and said with a smile, "Our guild does not require members to report their real identity, so you can also give yourself a code name to communicate with other members." Okay. Lin Yuan grinned and showed a ferocious smile to the octopus monster. Then, he strode into the room and opened his naked eye and eye of God at the same time. He looked at the interior of the room. After confirming that there was no problem in every corner, Lin Yuan walked into the room and lazily coiled his body. There were several formations in the room. One of them was a formation that could adjust the temperature according to one's thoughts after injecting demonic power. It was similar to the air conditioner in Lin Yuan's previous life. This setting was obviously very friendly to cold-blooded creatures like Lin Yuan. He didn't need to waste time in the hot sea to adjust his body temperature. There was also a simple spirit-gathering formation. Although the effect was far inferior to the green leaf-water lotus, it was still a luxurious thing. Even the human side might not be so generous to set up a small spirit-gathering formation in a hotel room. Chapter 692. Although there were only a few small formations, which could barely be called formations after simplification, the cost of operating such a hotel, even if there was only one room open, was astronomical. From this point of view, the wealth of the Sea Demon Guild was definitely not lower than that of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It was just that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas liked to invest a lot of wealth in the construction of the Dragon Palace, which shocked people at first glance. The Sea Demon Guild, on the other hand, preferred a calm and low-key style. Although it looked like coral on the outside, it was a different world inside. Compared to the fancy decorations of the Dragon Palace, the Sea Demon Guild obviously paid more attention to practicality. With these formations in the room, who would refuse to stay in the Sea Demon Hotel? If not for the fact that most of the members of the Sea Demon Guild were out on missions, the Sea Demon Hotel where Lin Yuan was staying would definitely not be so deserted. After all, the expenses here were obviously not something that ordinary monsters could afford. Tisk extravagant. Lin Yuan grinned slightly. After adjusting the temperature, he slowly fell asleep. He still had a lot of things to consider, and it was inevitable that there would be distracting thoughts when he was awake. It was better to be in a state of deep sleep to think. Although his consciousness had returned to chaos, the Eye of God was still open. Once there was a strong presence of hostility nearby, Lin Yuan would be the first to wake up. He also used his tempered monster power to set up a few traps in the room. Once touched, they would immediately explode. The power was no less than the full blow of a powerhouse of the River Lord realm. He ensured that even if someone broke in, they would be forced back by the traps at the first moment, and would not take advantage of the fact that Lin Yuan was not completely awake to directly attack him. After doing all this, Lin Yuan fell into a state of deep sleep. Guilds. This was an organization structure that could not be avoided in all the novels that Lin Yuan had read in his previous life. After personally coming to this world, Lin Yuan realized the advantages and disadvantages of the guild system. Even though the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was extremely wealthy, it was impossible for them to raise all the beasts in the endless sea to be their fighters. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did that, there would be no need for war or any other reason. Just the daily needs of these beasts would be enough to drag the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas into the abyss of destruction. Therefore, although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was the overlord of the endless sea, they were only friendly to the dragon tribe. Even if it was a demonic beast with dragon blood, as long as its bloodline was not pure, it was still a slave in the eyes of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. This was also the reason why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not have a good reputation. However, with a guild system, they could easily do something that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could not. To put it simply, the guild did not need to spend a lot of money to support fighters. Its only task was to contact the employer and the idle executor, and then judge whether the latter had the strength to complete the task entrusted by the employer. Then it would take an intermediary fee from the task reward. In addition, it would set up an intelligence agency. The guild hotel where Lin Yuan stayed would charge extra, and a large amount of wealth and resources could be accumulated in a short period of time. Moreover, this wealth would come from the low-level members of the guild, and would be used to support the high-level members. In this way, it would ensure that the position of the Sea Demon Guild would not be shaken, and it would also be able to get first-hand information and so on. However, this method of the Sea Demon Guild would not cause any dissatisfaction, because all guilds had the same philosophy. As long as you had enough ability and were willing to pay, even if you were from a humble background, the guild could provide you with enough cultivation resources. It could even be said that most of the cultivators from humble backgrounds were related to some guilds, and the rest were valued by aristocratic families and given resources to cultivate. Otherwise, the disciples of humble backgrounds would not be qualified to cultivate at all. And the Sea Demon Guild was doing something similar in the Endless Sea. Perhaps this was the reason why the beasts in the Endless Sea were more powerful than those on land? Compared to the beasts in the Endless Sea, The beasts on land were indeed several generations behind. However, the hidden dangers of this guild system were also present. Even a force as large as the Sea Demon Guild could only watch as the dragon clan of the four seas dominated the endless sea. When facing some of the weaker rulers of the sea demons, they had to put in a good word for them, and even give up a part of the benefits to be able to open a branch in the sea area controlled by the other party. It was precisely because he saw the pros and cons of the guild system that Lin Yuan kept the Association of the Demon Emperor as an organization and put it among the people. At the same time, he ensured that he had full control over the Association of the Demon Emperor. Controlling the guild meant that he didn't have to pay any price to control those idle cultivators who were unwilling to be the vanguard. No matter if it was a big or small matter, as long as he paid enough, he could make these guild members go and be cannon fodder. And these rewards usually came from these guild members themselves. Apart from the necessary investment in the early stages, the Association of the Demon Emperor was now on the path of freeloading. Most of the time, they could even transfer some funds to support the construction of the northern frontier. However, the guild wasn't so easy to control. For example, after Lin Yuan established the Association of the Demon Emperor and stabilized his position in the northern frontier, he immediately exterminated the Demon Subduer Guild and the Mercenary Guild. It wasn't simply because they were beasts, but because such a large guild wasn't something that the northern frontier could control. Therefore, it was better to replace them with their own people and start from scratch. The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas obviously couldn't control the Sea Demon Guild. They once had a chance. After all, a species that could enslave the entire endless sea would have no problem controlling a new Sea Demon Guild. However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas gave up on this opportunity. Therefore, the Sea Demon Guild of the Four Seas grew into a force even stronger than the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas should have taken remedial measures, for the Sea Demon Guild, it was just giving up some control of the sea to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even though many of the guild's senior members were members of the Dragon Clan. In fact, the decision-making power of the Sea Demon Guild was still in the hands of the powerful sea demons that had nothing to do with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. They wouldn't give the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas any chance to invade the guild. At this point, Lin Yuan slowly woke up from his deep slumber. After removing the traps and other arrangements, Lin Yuan murmured, "The Sea Demon Guild and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas don't have much connection. They are even enemies. Then can I use the name of the Sea Demon Guild to cultivate my own force?" His multicolored eyes flashed, and Lin Yuan's mind gradually became active. Although he didn't have a background of sea beasts, and couldn't casually recruit wandering sea beasts, as a member of God, he could create his own clan. With the power of these clans, it should be more than enough to control a few seas, right? Chapter 693. The system had once commented that the human race created by Nuwa was the closest to perfection. Lin Yuan had no hope of creating a race that surpassed human beings. Even in dreams, one had to have a sense of propriety, didn't they? However, it was not a problem for Lin Yuan to create a clan of monsters with powerful bloodlines. System, I want to create a clan. Do you have any suggestions? Lin Yuan pondered for a moment, and began to summon the system in his heart. The host has a clergy officially conferred by the human ruler of this world, and the means to steadily earn incense power. Theoretically, you can indeed create your own clan. However, the strength of the clan is directly related to the amount of incense power invested by the host. In addition, if it is not a race defined by the host, the clan will be created according to the host's own bloodline. It is recommended that the host upgrade his bloodline to a higher level before considering creating a clan. The system responded immediately. Clan was a very strange thing. They could be extremely powerful, but they could also disappear in the long river of history without anyone noticing. Therefore, ever since Nuwa created humans, a large number of gods and immortals would rather benefit a certain area and harvest the faith of some humans than try to create their own clan. After all, the difference between the investment and the return was simply too great. Theoretically speaking, since Goddess Nviwa created human beings, they would provide her with a large amount of incense power even if they did not believe in Goddess Nviwa. This was also the story of goddess Nviwa becoming a saint in the untainted land. Similar to preaching to become a saint, it was used to harvest incense power. However, in the entire untainted world, who else could become a saint by relying on a clan other than Niwa? Even after the great god Pan-gu created the world and died, the wizard clan formed by his flesh and blood disappeared in the long river of history. Wasn't the wizard clan strong? Not to mention the 12 ancestors of sorcery, even Ho-i Kwafu, and other senior sorcerers were all well-known figures in deepening. But what was the result? Didn't they still perish in the river of time? It was not impossible for Lin Yuan to create his own clan, but even if he created it, it would only be a species of the flood dragon, which was neither advanced nor low-level. It was just like the 9 sons of the dragon, each with a different plate. They may have certain abilities, but they may not even be counted as part of the dragon race. Although the story of the dragon's 9 sons did not refer to a clan, the principle was universal. It was the same for Lin Yuan. He might only create some non-flood dragons and pythons. Moreover, the purity of the bloodline was not high and needed a large amount of investment to gradually grow. From a rational point of view, the system really felt that when Lin Yuan's bloodline was further improved, the cost-effectiveness of creating a dragon species would be far better than creating a clan now. System, I've read many stories. Do you know what's the biggest difference between the clan created by the gods and the human races created by Niwa? Lin Yuan crossed his body and asked with a playful look in his eyes. Were humans really strong? Or were humans really a perfect race? He had thought about this question for a long time. Although he had the answer now, it still could not be used as evidence. However, from his point of view, he could only believe this. Otherwise, he would never be able to take that step, because no clan could surpass humans. This sentence was true. The system slowly typed a question mark. For some reason, it always felt that there was something wrong with Lin Yuan. Weak. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Huan gave an answer that the system could not understand at all. Survival is the innate characteristic of all living creatures. Every minute and every second, the living creatures in the world are working hard to survive. All species are constantly evolving to adapt themselves to this world. This evolution process makes these living creatures stronger and more perfect. Throughout history, countless empires would suddenly weaken and collapse after reaching the peak of their strength. This saying is also applicable to a clan. When a clan becomes a supreme existence, it will usher in a stage of self-destruction. I believe that all the worlds ruled by humans have similar backstories. A long time ago, the world was controlled by all kinds of powerful creatures. Humans were always at the bottom of the food chain. After a long time, those powerful creatures gradually died out, becoming a story that no one would believe even if it was told. However, most of the worlds fell into the control of humans. This is not because of the lies made up by novelists in my previous life. For example, the power of technology surpassed the power of mystery, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth became scarce, and the powerful creatures either died, went into hiding, or left. Perhaps what they said is one of the truths. However, there has always been only one reason why humans could rise and become the ruler of all worlds. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed and he said in a deep voice, because they are weak enough. At first, the system did not understand Lin Yuan's words, and still gave a question mark. But soon, the system figured out the hidden meaning in Lin Yuan's words. Because humans were weak, they could rely on all the powerful clans in order to survive. Coupled with their adaptability and intelligence as the foundation, they learned the strength of the powerful clans bit by bit. Whether it was cultivation or technology, they studied it out of reverence. Chapter 694. You've seen through Niwa's strategy, so you intend to create a weak race to surpass the so-called perfect race known as humans. The system asked once more. Lin Yuan remained silent for a moment. What the hell is that look? Do I look like an idiot asking that? The system roared after a moment, appearing flustered and exasperated. No, there's no such possibility. Theoretically speaking, no one could create a clan weaker than humans. Without external influence, the longest lifespan of a human would hover around 100 years. Moreover, there's a huge difference between individuals, and even siblings could be completely different. For example, one could be a genius, while the other could be a retard. For humans, extreme innate talent is required whether it's martial arts, cultivation, mathematics, or research. With the human population's immeasurably massive base, the chances of elite talents being born are pitifully low. Even if their average intelligence is not low and they are highly adaptable, they are mediocre if they do not rise to the top. Therefore, most humans were still ants that could be easily crushed to death by powerful creatures. If I didn't have an urgent problem to solve, perhaps I could develop my spawns in the direction of weak, and have them try to emulate humans to become more perfect creatures. But it's clear that creating such weak spawns now would only result in rapid death, wasting the power of Joss flames. Lin Yuan waved his hand, a look of regret showing in his eyes. If he had a plan, he really wanted to try and see if he could create an existence that was more perfect than humans. Even if he could not create a race comparable to the dragons, he must have sufficient combat ability under the current circumstances, or it would be a waste of time and Joss flame. Lin Yuan slowly closed his eyes and began to mold a humanoid model in his mind according to his imagination. It was only after he had a general framework that he began to perfect the details of the model bit by bit. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had a streamlined body. Every muscle contained a powerful explosive force. However, these muscles were not bulky and looked rather restrained. "You're really a profiteer, aren't you?" Lin Yuan complained even as he continued to mold the model. It was just a rough framework that did not carry any special abilities. Just building this body alone cost 318 points of Joss flame power. Without any special abilities, the body that was molded would probably be the standard of a healthy normal person in his previous life. It might be a little more resistant, but most of its attributes would be no different from normal humans. Wasn't it too lousy to make such a thing? Following Lin Yuan's thoughts, the model began to change slowly, gray scales covering the body. An attribute interface also appeared before Lin Yuan. Race information, race, unnamed low-level species type, subhuman level, lower grade profession, no specific profession talent. Underwater breathing skills, none abilities, beginner swimming, dragonman physique. 1.5 1 point for adult humans strength, 2.3 1 for adult humans agility, 0. 4 to 1. 1 land/water, spirit, 0. For low-level evaluation. An extremely weak amphibious species summon. 318 Joss flame as Lin Yuan's race. They were born with a certain amount of water dragon bloodline, and their attributes were slightly stronger than normal humans. There were even abilities and talents that didn't require Lin Yuan to spend extra attribute points to customize. In Lin Yuan's previous life, if there were enough of these attributes, they might be able to dominate. However, in this world where the strength value wasn't just a little bit higher, these races might not even be able to beat a Spirit Awakening Realm Level 1 monster beast. Their combat strength was probably equivalent to a carnivorous beast. Although strengthening to this point wasn't the limit, if possible, Lin Yuan could even buy all the talents, specialties, and skills from the system to directly bring the race's combat strength to the maximum. However, there was no point in doing so, because no matter how powerful the race was, it would only be meaningful if it was successfully summoned. A race like this that was like a piece of trash would consume 318 Joss flame power. It could be imagined that if he wanted to meet Lin Yuan's requirements, even if it was the lowest standard, the amount of Joss flame power needed to summon a race could instantly empty Lin Yuan's savings. Beginner swimming has advanced to intermediate swimming. Increased active skill seawater essence, passive skill severe pain, talent skill learning, passive skill devour, strength attribute increase, agility attribute increase. Lin Yuan browsed through the race's ability store while quickly weighing the pros and cons and issuing strengthening instructions one by one. Spending Joss flame power to strengthen the race wasn't a one-time thing. As long as Lin Yuan had enough Joss flame power, he could still improve his race in all aspects in the future. However, it had to be said that the system was a qualified profiteer, and it was quite generous when it came to tricking people. The first time he created a race, all the abilities he bought were 20% off. It was obvious that the system had prepared a marketing strategy to tempt the host to spend a lot. Perhaps some hosts had unknowingly created a race that they couldn't summon in a short period of time. And this wasn't the worst part. What was the worst part? Apart from the first time he created a race, every time he spent Joss flame power to strengthen a race, the cost wasn't 100%, but 150%. It roughly meant that if he didn't buy enough abilities the first time, the extra price he had to pay the next time he strengthened a race would be enough to make him vomit blood. With abilities installed one by one, the model in Lin Yuan's mind began to change. The male still looked about 1.8 meters tall, while the female's height was reduced to 1.7 meters. Moreover, the female's muscle lines were obviously much softer than the male's. After paying a certain amount of strength and physique as the price, the two attributes of agility and spirit were increased. In addition to the human-like appearance, the race also had a pair of huge bat wings extending from its back. Yes, that's right. Lin Yuan even added wings to his race, intending to create a tri-species that could live on land, sea, and air to fight for him. However, a pair of bat wings that could barely be used to fly cost Lin Yuan 1,000 points of incense power, which was his biggest expense at the moment. If it weren't for the fact that the race could reproduce through both sexes after it was created, and that it could provide Lin Yuan with Joss flame power as an intelligent creature, Lin Yuan obviously wouldn't do such a losing deal. Chapter 695. Clan Tribe Information. Race: Grayscaled Flood Dragon Person. Low-level species. Type: Subhuman level. Rank 1 upper profession. No specific profession talent. Underwater breathing, learning, optical camouflage skill. Seawater essence, tide summoning, severe pain, devour, sudden thrust, seed explosion skill. Advanced swimming, flood dragon person, scaly armor, short flight, intermediate regeneration physique. 6.5 adult human, 1 point strength. 8.9 adult human, 1 point agility. 3/3/8. 2/4. 5 land, a water, sky spirit. 3 low-level intelligence, has the potential to become a spellcaster. Evaluation: an extremely weak amphibious species. Summoning cost: 2,541 incense power. Talent skill: underwater breathing. This creature has the bloodline of an aquatic demon beast and can absorb oxygen from water since birth. Even if it does not rise to the surface to breathe fresh air for a long time, it can still maintain a clear mind and efficient movement ability. Learning: this creature has a certain level of intelligence and can improve its abilities in all aspects through learning. If there are books, videos, and other teaching materials, this creature's learning speed will increase by 20%. Optical camouflage: a powerful talent ability. This creature can change its body color through optical effects. If it remains motionless for a long time, it will automatically change the color of the surrounding environment and disappear from the enemy's sight. It has a good effect regardless of whether it is used to wait for prey or to escape the pursuit of strong enemies. Active skill: seawater essence. As a member of the aquatic demon beast, this creature has a natural affinity with water and can quickly use its skin to absorb water to recover from injuries. Especially when it absorbs seawater, the healing effect will increase by 10%. Sudden thrust: when this creature is holding a sharp weapon, it can launch a sudden thrust to perform a short displacement. The specific displacement distance is calculated by multiplying its agility attribute by 5. If the thrust hits the target, the damage value will be calculated by multiplying its agility attribute by 3. Seed explosion: this creature has the bloodline of a high-level demon beast in its body. In a life-and-death situation, it can choose to unleash its bloodline power to obtain a large increase in attributes. After activating the skill, all attributes will increase by 50% for 15 minutes. After the skill is used up, it will enter a weakened state, and all attributes will decrease by 70% for 3 days. Passive skill: tide summoning. This creature has an affinity with the water element. If it is near a water source, when it makes a sound, there is a certain probability of causing a tide. When this creature reaches a certain number, it can easily summon a tsunami. Severe pain: every time this creature attacks an enemy, there is a 15% chance of inflicting 10% additional damage and causing the enemy to feel as if they are being pricked by needles. Has an extremely high deterrent effect on cowards. Devour. This ability will be automatically activated when the life form eats. Increase digestion efficiency by 20%. When eating phase of the same level, the life form will obtain greater benefits than other phase. Abilities Frowny Face Advanced Swimming. This creature has an advanced swimming ability. Its movement speed in the water will be greatly increased. If this ability is activated, it will consume a lot of stamina, but its movement speed will be increased by 3 times underwater. Dragonman Scale Armor. This is an ability that this creature inherited from their father god. The gray scale armor on their body has a certain level of defense. Although it does not provide any attribute bonuses, when the scales are intact, this creature will have 20% damage immunity. Short Flight. The creature has a pair of huge bat wings on its back, but they cannot support the creature's flight for a long time. If there are no external influences, the creature can fly for a quarter of an hour. Intermediate Regeneration. This creature has a very strong recovery ability. Even if the wound on its abdomen is cut open, as long as the wound does not worsen, it will be able to fully recover in less than half an hour. However, this recovery ability is not invincible. Severed limb injuries cannot be healed through this ability. The above were the attributes of the spawn tribe that Lin Yuan had strengthened. It had to be said that this interface was still trash, but compared to when Lin Yuan had just arrived in this world, these spawn tribe were considered extremely powerful. At the very least, they could fight against demon beasts below the Wisdom Enlightenment realm. Their speed was also rather good. If both sides were to fight underwater, even if the spawn tribe did not use their advanced swimming ability, their speed would be at the peak of the Spirit Awakening realm. Phew. Lin Yuan let out a long breath and glanced at his Joss Flame model. He said in a deep voice, "Let's set it like this for the time being. Summon 4 spawn tribe for me, 3 males and 1 female." As soon as he said that, Lin Yuan saw his Joss Flame power constantly jumping and finally stopping at a pitiful 2. 4 gray-scaled flood dragon people also appeared in Lin Yuan's sight. We pay our respects to the great Blackwater Dragon King, the one and only divine king of the Northern Frontier divine system, the father of the gray-scaled flood dragon people. As soon as the 4 spawn tribe walked out of the white light condensed by the system, they all knelt on the ground toward Lin Yuan. As the spawn tribe that Lin Yuan had personally created, their loyalty to Lin Yuan was unshakable. Just like the first batch of humans that Nuwa had created back then, they all worshipped Nuwa as the mother of humanity. In other words, these spawn tribe that Lin Yuan had personally created were naturally fanatical believers of Lin Yuan. Each of them could provide 5 Joss Flame power to Lin Yuan every day. However, this loyalty was limited to the spawn tribe that Lin Yuan had personally created. Whether the descendants of the spawn tribe would still believe in Lin Yuan, the Blackwater Dragon King, would depend on Lin Yuan's own methods. Nuwa could still be used as an example. According to myths and legends, Nuwa, who had created humans, should have been the most powerful existence among the gods, especially after humans had unified the heavens and 10,000 worlds. However, in reality, Nuwa had always been below Hongjun. She was not even the most powerful existence among the few saints. This was because when humans talked about Nuwa, most of them still treated her as a made-up existence. Among the descendants of the first batch of spawn tribe, there were not many who believed in Nuwa. Compared to Nuwa, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, who had made great contributions to the human race, they were more like some kind of idealized existence in the eyes of humans. However, if you were to ask a human who they would believe in if there were really gods in the world, most humans would probably tell you without hesitation that they would choose the god of fortune. There might also be many other random gods. However, what was certain was that they would rather choose a god that could bring them practical benefits than believe in a mother of humanity that could not bring them any benefits. It was just that realistic. Lin Yuan did not wish to follow in Nuwa's footsteps, so he would not raise his own spawn tribe. In fact, when creating the spawn tribe, Lin Yuan had already drawn up a series of plans to maximize the benefits that the spawn tribe could bring. Chapter 696. In addition, relying on the clan tribe to harvest incense power seemed very profitable, but it was not the case. First of all, summoning a clan tribe required a large amount of incense power. Although there was a certain return, there was a limit to the clan tribe's lifespan. For example, the current gray-scaled flood dragon person would die of old age at the age of 20 if there was no external influence. In other words, a clan tribe that died of old age could provide 36,500 incense power just by calculating the supply of faith. However, that was not how the accounts were calculated. The clan tribes that Lin Yuan created could not possibly be in their infancy. Every one of them was truly in their prime. In other words, when these clan tribes were summoned, their actual age was already over 5 years old, and the older ones might be 8 years old. Furthermore, the clan tribes themselves were not existences from some advanced civilization. Once a clan tribe exceeded the age of 15, their bodily functions would be greatly reduced, and they would not even be able to rely on themselves to catch prey to fill their stomachs. If the clan tribe was rich, they would still be able to eat, but if the clan tribe was not rich, they might even become food for other clan tribes. Even if Lin Yuan was willing to raise old clan tribes, they would most likely not be able to live to the point of dying of old age. They might not even live to the point where they could not hunt anymore. This was because the meaning of their existence was to charge and break through enemy lines for Lin Yuan. In addition, although the clan tribes could cultivate, their main way to improve was to constantly fight, just like characters in games. They accumulated experience through fighting, and then Lin Yuan would use incense power to upgrade them, so that the clan tribe's abilities would be improved in all aspects. At present, this was the only way for the clan tribes to improve. Even for a race like the human race that was famous for its high intelligence and comprehension ability, if they wanted to cultivate a powerful cultivator, they would need to invest a large amount of resources and decades, or even centuries of time. The Northern Frontier Academy was still crying piteously for food. Lin Yuan was already under pressure to maintain the Northern Frontier's daily consumption. If the clan tribes also came to consume the phase stored in the Northern Frontier, it might not be long before even the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce's transactions could not be maintained. In addition, even if there were no problems in terms of resources, Lin Yuan could not invest too much in the clan tribes. After all, the system had already determined that they had low intelligence when they had as low as 3 points of spirit. The so-called potential to become a spellcaster was just to tell Lin Yuan that the gray-scaled flood dragon person could barely cultivate. However, their aptitude was there. Even if Lin Yuan spent a lot of money, he would not be able to create a super powerhouse. Before the gray-scaled flood dragon person's potential reached a certain level, they were destined to be consumables on the battlefield. They could be said to be large consumers of Joss flames in all aspects. However, even if they were lucky, some of the clan tribes had experienced hundreds of battles, and were piled up into powerhouses by Lin Yuan's Joss flames, but it was still useless. Even a Demon King's clan tribe could only provide 5 points of Joss flames a day. Furthermore, Demon Kings would also die of old age. The more he invested, the more he would lose when the clan tribe died of old age. Ever since he activated the clan tribe model, Lin Yuan felt that this thing might not be as useful as the soldier creation function. No matter how much he invested in the beginning, there was a high probability that he would not be able to recoup the cost in the end. He might even suffer a huge loss. Forget it. There are pros and cons. At least you can reproduce and grow on your own. The things that come out of the soldier creation function can only rely on me to instill attribute points. Moreover, compared to you, they can only do not harm me. They might not be 100% loyal to me in their hearts. Lin Yuan sighed. With the word fanatic, here Lin Yuan did not have to worry about the loyalty of his clan tribes at all. After all, the history of the West in his previous life had proven countless times that fanatics were a very scary thing. They could even abandon everything for the god they believed in. Wealth, fame, family, to them, all of these were not as important as the words of the gods. Even if they could not obtain any benefits, as long as they could please the god they believed in, these fanatics would be able to put on their armor and go to the other side of the world to conquer their god's enemies. Great Father, please give us your oracle. We will do our best to share your burden. The 4 gray-scaled flood dragon people bowed once again, and said to Lin Yuan in a deep voice, "Right now you are still too weak. Go around this sea region and take a look. If there are suitable prey, kill it without hesitation. When the time is right, I will bestow you with greater power." Lin Yuan glanced at the 4 gray-scaled flood dragon people, and immediately made a judgment in his heart. Although the attribute models of the two sides were not quite the same, with Lin Yuan's strength he could determine that the 4 weaklings in front of him were actually around the 6th level of the Spirit Awakening realm, just by sensing their qi. This kind of strength was at the bottom of the food chain in the Endless Sea. Fortunately, their strength was low and there were no requirements for the strength of their enemies. Even if they killed sea beasts that had not been awakened, they could still gain experience. We obey Father's orders. The 4 gray-scaled flood dragon people bowed once again, and slowly left the hotel Lin Yuan was in. The attitude of the Sea Demon Guild was very ambiguous. They did not want to miss out on a powerful force like Lin Yuan, but they were also not willing to be the scapegoat for Lin Yuan. Thus, after giving Lin Yuan the pancakes, they directly left Lin Yuan in the hotel. There was not a single spy nearby, so Lin Yuan did not have to worry about the trouble of his 4 spawn tribes being targeted. It was clear that the Sea Demon Guild was worried that Lin Yuan's enemies would come knocking soon, so they decided to stay out of it for the time being. If the other party was really powerful, and the Sea Demon Guild knew that this was the Sea Demon Hotel, and still attacked Lin Yuan, then the Sea Demon Guild would have to reconsider whether it was worth offending an even more powerful opponent for Lin Yuan. Seeing his Joss flame power return to 0, Lin Yuan helplessly stretched his body. His different colored eyes were filled with a hint of mockery. He wondered if there were any existences in the Endless Sea that were willing to trade with him. Right now he needed a large amount of Joss flame power. The act of creating spawn tribes made things worse for Lin Yuan, who was not rich to begin with. The number of 4 spawn tribes was still too small. It was impossible for them to grow in a short period of time. After all, weak existences could only kill weaker existences in a one-on-one battle. When facing strong existences, they needed more people to surround and kill them. Otherwise, they could only stand aside obediently and watch their prey swagger away. Even if he did not need to increase the number of spawn tribes in a short period of time, with the current income of Joss flame power, he might not even have enough Joss flame power for the gray-scaled flood dragon people to evolve. Ever since he devoured the fate of the Shenwu dynasty, Lin Yuan once again felt what poverty was. Chapter 697. At the same time, Northern Frontier, Northern Battlefront Army Camp. Li Zhong was sitting in the commander's tent. On his left were Luo Su, Yi Belan, Zhang Xiuzhu, and other powerful people in the Northern Frontier intelligence system. On the other side were some officials from the Northern Frontier families, and the people in charge of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. They had all received Li Zhong's order, and put down their work to come to the Northern Battlefront Army Camp. On his right side were Qin Yu, Zhao Guangchong, Gao Buzhen, Mendu, and other military leaders in the Northern Frontier. On the other side were the newly promoted generals of the Northern Battlefront Army, except for Li Zhongxing, who was still directing the construction of the Great Wall project and fighting against the Frost Mirror Barbarian. Almost all the generals in the Northern Frontier were here. Today I've called all of you here for 2 reasons. Li Zhong slowly raised a finger and said, "First, Lord Dragon King is in danger in the Endless Sea. According to the information from the Ministry of Works, Lord Dragon King might not be able to get out in a short time. So during this time, I will be in charge of everything in the Northern Frontier. Let me tell you the ugly truth first. I advise you to be honest and don't have any bad ideas." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expression changed slightly. It was hard to say what was going on with Lin Yuan, but now that Li Zhong said that, it meant that he might have done all the preparations. Once there was someone who didn't listen to him, and wanted to make trouble, Li Zhong might come to their door before they could fight. Although the expressions of the people around him changed several times, no one stood up to refute. The corners of Li Zhong's mouth curled up slightly, and a fleeting smile flashed across his face. Then he continued, "The second thing is that some time ago, we caught a group of special undead during an operation to eliminate the Resurrection Society." Special? Immortals? Luo Su tilted his head, and a hint of doubt flashed across his eyes. Some time ago, the Sky Demon had used the elixir of immortality to create chaos in the northern frontier. Even his biggest competitor, Shi Dong, had died because of the elixir of immortality. However, since then, the Sky Demon's forces in the northern frontier had been damaged one after another. He could only curl up in the Hengduan Mountains and struggle at death's door. He could no longer pose a threat to the northern frontier. During this period of time, apart from preparing for war, the northern frontier was mainly fighting against the Northern Restoration Society, apart from the occasional small skirmishes with the Sky Demon Army and the Frost Mirror Barbarian. Luo Su subconsciously frowned when he heard the term, undying, out of the blue. Don't be nervous, Commander Luo. The immortals mentioned here are not the immortals created by the Sky Demon, but some monsters that have the appearance of humans, but can't be killed. Li Zhong cleared his throat and said with a solemn expression, according to the information in my hands, when these immortals were captured, they had been killed more than 10 times in the operation to wipe out the Northern Restoration Society. However, after each death, they can quickly revive. Even if they are cut into pieces, they will not die. Instead, from one of the pieces of flesh, they will once again grow into a complete body. As his voice fell, the expressions of all the generals in the northern frontier changed. As existences who galloped on the battlefield, they were never afraid of strong enemies. However, in the face of disgusting things, even they had to retreat. For example, these unkillable things were one of them. No matter how strong these immortals were, as long as there was no way to kill them, they could only go around them. Not every soldier had a big heart that had been tempered thousands of times. There was a limit to what they could accept. Once they encountered this kind of monster that couldn't be killed even if they were cut into pieces, their morale would quickly collapse. At that time, it was completely unpredictable what would happen. In order to deal with the immortals, I have tried many ways. In addition to physical means such as chopping, hacking, and piercing the heart with thousands of arrows, I have also invited some Heaven Dipper realm cultivators to use various techniques to attack them. However, the result, even if these immortals are burned to ashes, they can recover again. It's just that the recovery time of the immortals is different depending on the injury. If they are burned to ashes, it will take at least 3 days to recover. In addition to this kind of creepy immortal power, these immortals look almost no different from us humans. If it weren't for the operation to wipe out the Northern Restoration Society, we might not have been able to discover the existence of these immortals. This is because the other party's appearance, intelligence, and other aspects are no different from ordinary humans. For the time being, we are not sure if the existence of the immortals has anything to do with the Sky Demon. However, the waters of the Northern Restoration Society are definitely much deeper than we previously thought. However, there is good news. So far, we have intercepted and killed nearly 20,000 members of the Northern Restoration Society. Most of the members of the Northern Restoration Society are ordinary people. So far, we have only discovered about 20 immortals. Li Zhong crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with a cold expression, "The reason why I called you all here is simply that I can't think of a way to deal with the immortals. However, if you all brainstorm together, perhaps there will be some gains." The expressions of everyone in the commander's tent changed several times. They all looked at each other, but no one spoke. The oppressive atmosphere was maintained for a full incense's time. Zhang Xiuzhu stretched out his hand and gently knocked on the table. After attracting everyone's attention, he said in an almost joking tone, "You should know that the work of attacking the Northern Restoration Society went smoothly because many of my agents infiltrated the Northern Restoration Society and provided a lot of information for the cleanup work. However, according to the information of my agents, this time, we almost caught the Northern Restoration Society's president." As soon as his voice fell, the expressions of everyone, including Li Zhong, changed. Almost caught the Northern Restoration Society's president? This was not good news. Therefore, we suspect that the Northern Restoration Society's president has a way to turn ordinary people into immortals. Moreover, this guy is very cunning. The place where he is very likely to have a large number of secret mechanisms. According to our method of pulling out nails, We may never catch the Northern Restoration Society's president. If we can't catch the Northern Restoration Society's president, then the other party may create more immortals. When the number of immortals reaches a certain level, our offensive and defensive roles may be switched. Zhang Xiuju's expression was tense. He said in a deep voice, "So now we only have two paths. Either we expose a flaw to lure the Northern Restoration Society's president into the battlefield we have prepared to capture him, or we study the weaknesses of these immortals as soon as possible to prepare for the decisive battle soon." Chapter 698. The opponent is an unkillable monster. What weakness can it have? Zhao Guangcheng frowned slightly and subconsciously opened his mouth to reply. As the leader of the Blackwater Army, Zhao Guangcheng was best at breaking through enemy lines. Previously, when he fought against Shueliao Knight, he dared to take the lead and charge into the enemy's formation. Therefore, as long as an opponent appeared in front of him, he would not panic. However, if his opponent was a monster that he could not kill no matter how hard he tried, that would be his blind spot. If you can't kill it, can you trap it? Qin Yu, who was also from the Blackwater Army, also frowned and gave a suggestion. "I'm afraid it's very difficult." Li Zhong shook his head with a wry smile and said in a low voice, "I said before that if it wasn't a coincidence and we didn't intend to leave them alive, we wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between these monsters and ordinary people. This also means that the opponent also has the ability to cultivate, and is even not inferior to human intelligence. But compared to us, they have a special trait called immortality. Therefore, it is very difficult to capture beasts and the like. I mean, if we use something like a ballista, can we directly nail them to the ground?" Qin Yu asked again. Clap. Clap. Li Zhong clapped his hands lightly twice. Soon, the soldiers outside the tent came in with a young man in tattered clothes. But from the outside, it was almost impossible to distinguish the original color and style of the clothes. Cuts, tears, and bloodstains could be seen everywhere. If one only looked at the clothes, it would be impossible to imagine that the owner of the clothes was still alive in this world. Even if it were a demon beast with a tyrannical body to bear such injuries, it would probably die on the spot. But the young man wearing the clothes, other than his face being covered in dust and looking somewhat disheveled, there was not a single wound on his body. Only the 3 layers of spirit-binding shackles on his body told everyone in the tent that although this young man looked relatively quiet, he was in fact a ruthless character. Li Zhong nodded to the soldiers escorting the young man, and slowly got up from the main seat. Clang! The long sword at his waist was unsheathed. The speed of the sword was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the white light had already pierced through the young man's waist. Soon after, Li Zhong slowly released his right hand, allowing the long sword to remain in the young man's body. What happened next almost made everyone's eyes widen. The wound on the young man's body kept wriggling. Pieces of flesh and blood transformed into tentacles, twisting and intertwining with each other. Meanwhile, the long sword was pushed out bit by the regenerating force, and finally fell to the ground with a loud clang. The wound on the young man's abdomen had completely healed. Not even a scar could be seen. Only the blood flowing out proved that Li Zhong's sword had indeed pierced into his abdomen. "I've already tried." Li Zhong sighed softly and said helplessly, "When these guys heal their wounds, their flesh and blood will burst with a terrifying repulsive force. I've had Senior Jiu Jianxian try it, and let him keep holding the sword to suppress it, but the sword was still pushed out by this force. This also means that, even if someone below the celestial strength realm is suppressed by human strength, there is no way anyone below the celestial strength realm would be able to resist this strange force. Do you think those large ballistae would be able to do it if even Senior Jiu, who is at the peak of the airborne realm, couldn't do it?" As soon as he finished speaking, the commander's tent fell into a dead silence again. Despite being at the pinnacle of the airborne realm being far inferior to those at the celestial strength realm, they were still able to easily take on the incoming ballista bolts. They were even able to crush the bolts that were moving at high speeds with their bare hands. If such a force could not suppress the young man, how could the ballistae do it? Moreover, this young man had 3 layers of spirit-binding shackles on his body, but it was only his cultivation that was suppressed. That strange undying power was not affected at all. Therefore, the special metal that was used to suppress cultivators was not effective at all. The young man slowly raised his head and sneered at Li Zhong, who was standing in front of him, and said in a cold voice, "Mortal, I am an existence blessed by the Supreme God. Unless my God wants to take my life, you mortals will never be able to kill me." "So, there is nothing we can do about these immortals?" Luo Su asked with a gloomy face. Li Zhong was silent for a moment and said with a bitter smile, "If Lord Dragon King is here, it may be easy to get rid of these so-called immortals. But maybe it is as he said, we are just mortals, and it is pardonable that we can't kill these monsters." At this point, Li Zhong paused, took a deep breath, and continued. "So what I mean is that the northern frontier fully shrink the defense line and temporarily cede some territory to the Northern Restoration Society. Everything will wait for Lord Dragon King to come back and make the decision. Before that, the most important thing is to guard against the Sky Demon army that may fight with us at any time." "Tisk." Zhao Guangcheng frowned without hiding it and said in a muffled voice, "That is impossible. The Northern Restoration Society has been continuously suppressed by us during this period of time, and they are already very weak. At this time, we don't chase after them and even give them time to breathe? This kind of thinking is tantamount to suicide. Then what if we encounter these unkillable monsters again?" Li Zhong narrowed his eyes slightly and turned his head to glare at Zhao Guangcheng, his face slightly gloomy. Zhao Guangcheng stood up, and his aura was not inferior to Li Zhong's. He growled, "Although these guys can't be killed, their strength is just so. If we encounter them again, we will find an opportunity to capture them." Qin Yu stretched out his hand and pulled Zhao Guangcheng's sleeve, coughing softly twice. This colleague of his was good at everything, but his brain was a little one-track minded. Rather than saying that he was simple and straightforward, it was better to say that this guy believed in using force to solve problems, and rarely used his brain. But at this time, in front of so many Northern Frontier bosses, he slammed the table and challenged the king of the Northern Frontier. Did he think that he would not die? After Li Zhong and Zhao Guangcheng looked at each other for a moment, they suddenly chuckled. Qin Yu subconsciously felt a chill on his back. He didn't know why, but he always felt that Li Zhong's act today was purely for show. Perhaps this guy had already dug a big hole, and was just waiting for them to jump into it. Still too young. Qin Yu glanced at the people around her who were looking down at their noses and sighed in her heart. Obviously, Li Zhong was going to leave the mess to his subordinates to deal with. Everyone knew this, so they kept silent. However, when it came to Zhao Guangcheng, the silly guy, he dared to slap the table and challenge Li Zhong. Perhaps the undead would fall on the Blackwater army soon. Chapter 699. Since Zhao Yingzheng is so confident, then I'll have to trouble Zhao Yingzheng to capture these immortals. Li Zhong reached out and patted the non-existent dust on his hands, a faint smile on his face, and said, "From now on, Zhao Yingzheng will be separated from the Blackwater Army's fighting sequence. All frontline affairs will have nothing to do with Zhao Yingzheng. You will lead your troops and be responsible for capturing the discovered immortals, as well as the leader of the Northern Restoration Society, who is absconding. If there are any problems during this period, I will hold you responsible." This, Zhao Guangcheng's breathing slightly stagnated. Although he didn't like to use his brain very much, this didn't mean that he was really stupid. So after Li Zhong spoke, he already realized that Li Zhong was completely planning to throw the trouble out, and he just happened to step on a mine. What? Didn't Zhao Yingzheng say it was very easy before? Can't you just capture the immortals if you encounter them? Li Zhong curled the corner of his mouth and directly opened his mouth to block Zhao Guangcheng's mouth, and said in a strange tone, "Of course, if Zhao Yingzheng is not willing to take responsibility for this matter, I will not force you. But from today onwards, all actions against the Northern Restoration Society will be temporarily suspended in the Northern Frontier. We will wait for Dragon King to return before we make further plans." "I'll take this job." Zhao Guangcheng's blood was boiling at this moment, and he couldn't care less about the trouble at all, and directly growled. Some time ago, he was ordered by Lin Yuan to transfer a group of Blackwater army to listen to Lei Qiuxing's command. Now that Lei Qiuxing was in closed-door training, the command of this team completely fell into his hands, and naturally participated in a series of attack plans against the Northern Restoration Society. Most of the time, the well-equipped Blackwater Army was the main force to destroy cities and strongholds. Now that most of the Northern Restoration Society's strongholds had been uprooted, the remaining ones had hidden in the forests near the Hengduan Mountains. If they did not take advantage of the situation now, who knew what other trump cards the Northern Restoration Society would bring out? If the Sky Demon Army attacked the northern frontier, it would be difficult to guarantee that the northern frontier would not be destroyed. If Zhao Guangcheng could figure this out, the others could naturally figure it out as well. The reason why no one brought it up, and even allowed Li Zhong to bring up this suicidal suggestion, was to find someone who was not afraid of trouble to take the blame. If no one said anything, then the person in charge would be decided by drawing lots. That's all. Meeting adjourned. Having found a suitable person to be in charge, Li Zhong was clearly much more relaxed. He waved his hand lightly and walked out of the commander's tent, as if the person with the bitter smile from before was not him. Yi Bailin was the second to get up. When he passed by Zhao Guangcheng, he looked like he wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he did not say a single word. He just sighed softly, reached out and patted Zhao Guangcheng's shoulder, and was the second to leave the commander's tent. After that, it was Luo Su, Zhang Xiuzhu, and a group of generals. Finally, it was the people in charge of the other offices in the northern frontier. These people seemed to have discussed it in advance. They all walked in front of Zhao Guangcheng, sighed softly, and then reached out and patted Zhao Guangcheng's shoulder as if to encourage him. However, Zhao Guangcheng saw that many people were trying hard to hold back their laughter, and even their faces were slightly red. This was especially true for Gao Buzhen. This person almost had the word happy written on his face. But thinking about it, these immortals themselves were not weak cultivators. Coupled with the power of immortality, they cooperated with a certain battle formation. Ordinary troops really had no way to deal with them. Except for the Devil Beast army that could not be seen. Only the Blackwater Army and the Fallen Star Army could be a match for them. The current Blackwater Army had no mission for the time being. They were all split up to assist in various departments. Zhao Guangcheng and Qin Yu, who had nothing to do, were also nominally under Lei Qiuxing's command. In today's meeting, Lei Qiuxing did not participate at all. Even Li Zhong could not directly dispatch his subordinates without Lei Qiuxing's permission. Therefore, if Zhao Guangcheng and Qin Yu were thick-skinned and did not accept the task, this task would definitely be carried out by the Fallen Star Army. Drawing lots was said to be fair and just, but everyone was a cultivator who did not know how to play tricks. Playing tricks? Out of everyone present, who would be able to outplay Li Zhong? This old fox? The last to get up was Qin Yu. He also sighed, but before he could reach out his hand, Zhao Guangcheng's threatening voice had already sounded. Old Qin, if you take this down, don't blame me for turning my back on you. I'll make you participate in the operation to exterminate the Resurrection Society, with a pig head tomorrow. You know, I'm afraid I'll be very idle in the short term. The immortals were not cabbages on the roadside. Except for the ones caught this time, there might not be more than 100 immortals in the entire Resurrection Society. Obviously, it was not impossible to transform ordinary humans into immortals, but it was either expensive or the conditions were very harsh. Therefore, the proportion of immortals in the Resurrection Society might not be large. He was a general who had been kicked out of the fighting order. He might really be idle for a long time. A tense and exciting fight with Qin Yu would not affect him much at all. But during this period of time, the task was still heavy and the time was tight. Except for some special existences, everyone in the northern frontier who could move had to participate in the operation to exterminate the Resurrection Society. Therefore, Qin Yu would definitely have to go out tomorrow. If he appeared in front of his subordinates with a pig head, Qin Yu would not be able to stand up in the Blackwater Army. Qin Yu's expression changed. He put down his right hand that was ready to move and said with a smile, "Old Zhao, am I that kind of person? Would I laugh at you like they did because you didn't think it through and made a mistake? Don't you think your words are too hurtful to me?" Zhao Guangcheng curled his lips suspiciously and said in a deep voice, You didn't speak before, and you secretly pulled the corner of my clothes. Did you already guess that the king of the northern frontier was going to do this? Good boy, you don't talk about martial ethics. You seem to be a tiger. Chinyu scolded in a low voice. He gritted his teeth and said, "The immortals are a big trouble. You can suppress them for a while with these guys under you. But how can you prove that the plan to capture the immortals is not the plan of the Resurrection Society's president, who is still elusive? If you want to supervise them closely, you are not just a little bit better. When you can't hold on anymore, won't I have to leave to help you?" Speaking of this, Chinyu narrowed his eyes and said hatefully, "The king of the northern frontier originally wanted the Fallen Star Army to do this. I thought the Blackwater Army had escaped this time, but I didn't expect you to suddenly hit the table. You really made us suffer." This, Zhao Guangcheng once again entered the state of Abba Abba. Chapter 700. The Endless Sea, the Deep Sea Region, the Willowstone Sea. Why do I feel uneasy? Lin Yuan was sitting cross-legged, refining his demonic power. His eyes were filled with confusion. So far, no trouble had come to the West Sea Dragon Palace. It seemed that in order to cover up the news of the aberrant, and also to hide the fact that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was ready to retreat, the Dragon Palace of the West Sea did not mention anything about the evil dragon pool. Even as far as Lin Yuan knew, the West Sea Dragon Palace had specially transferred 3 of the 9 sons of the Dragon Clan to directly destroy the Red Crab Clan, which was involved in this matter, to ensure that the matter of Dragon Lake would rot in their stomachs. After all the survivors of the entire evil dragon pool had become aberrants. Only Lin Yuan was missing. Even the aberrant who created this tragedy had not been found out. However, as a level 8 demonic beast of the Mountain Lord realm, and the bloodline of the water dragon, Lin Yuan was sure that he was not being paranoid. Even without the help of the system, Lin Yuan was the divine king of the Northern Frontier Divine System, the pioneer of the underworld in the Tianwu continent, and the incarnation of the Nether River. Therefore, if he felt uneasy, there must be something wrong. Could it be the Northern Frontier? Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and murmured. If there was nothing wrong with him, it could only be the Northern Frontier. However, he could not figure out what kind of trouble the Northern Frontier could have. Before he left, not only did he leave behind a large amount of Netherworld realm Blackwater for Li Zhong, he even summoned existences in the Wisdom realm, or the Mountain Lord realm. Their combat power was not considered strong, but when combined with the Netherworld River's unkillable characteristics, they were definitely a force that could stand shoulder to shoulder with any army in the world. After all, the Tianwu continent was very different from the Endless Sea. In the Tianwu continent, whether it was a demonic beast of the demonic king realm, or a Dao initiation realm cultivator, once they broke through, they had to report to the Heavenly Gate. Otherwise, they would be the enemy of the entire cultivation world. Therefore, the combat power Lin Yuan left behind was sufficient. He even created the god of war, Batu, to be the true dragon son of heaven. With such strength, even if the Shimwu dynasty at its peak came, Lin Yuan might have the audacity to challenge it directly. "Father, we have completed the first refinement. We are here to report to you." Soon, the 4 demonic beast clans appeared in Lin Yuan's consciousness. Although they did not meet, Lin Yuan could check the status of these demonic beasts through the system panel. The one who spoke was Flood Dragon 1, the leader of the 4 demonic beast clans. Although the 4 demonic beast clans were essentially the same, as the first demonic beast clans to speak to Lin Yuan, Flood Dragon 1 received special treatment. For example, he was chosen by Lin Yuan to be a holy disciple. This meant that once Lin Yuan needed him, he could give up everything, and allow Lin Yuan's divine sense to descend on his body and control his every move. The other 3 demonic beast clans were Flood Dragon 2, Flood Dragon 3, and Flood Dragon Younger Sister. It was not that Lin Yuan felt that naming was troublesome, but although these demonic beast clans were personally summoned by him, they were still weak chickens. Everyone knew that weak chickens did not deserve to have names. Most of the time, they were just called by their code names. Not bad. Heroes should enjoy praise and honor. As my brave warrior, you will receive everything you deserve for your efforts. Now enjoy the fruits of victory. Lin Yuan nodded at Flood Dragon 1. The large number of items piled up beside him were emitting a golden radiance. As the items disappeared one by one, Lin Yuan's incense power on his system panel increased. When it was almost enough, Lin Yuan willed it and golden incense power gushed out and poured directly into the 4 demonic beast clans in front of him. Demonic beast clans information. Name, Flood Dragon 1 race, grayscaled Flood Dragon person, low-level species, type, subhuman level, upper tier 1 class, spear warrior talents, underwater breathing, learning, optical camouflage skills, seawater essence, tide call, agony, devour, lunge, explosive seed, spear warrior form specialties, advanced swimming, flood dragon person scaly armor, short flight, intermediate regeneration physique, 9, 5, resistance comparable to turtles, strength, 11 strength not inferior to elephants, agility, 6, 4/10/5 land water sky spirit. For low-level intelligence has the potential to become a spellcaster. 2000 incense power had brought about an improvement on Flood Dragon 1's system panel. In terms of numbers, Flood Dragon 1's attributes didn't seem to have changed much. However, Lin Yuan was still shocked when he looked at Flood Dragon 1 in front of him. Although he didn't know how the attribute panel of the clan tribe was converted, Lin Yuan could be sure at the moment that Jiao Yi's strength at the moment was probably not inferior to the second level of the wisdom state, or even stronger and more resistant to attacks. It hadn't been that long. According to the game system, Flood Dragon 1 had risen from level 1 to level 2 at most. However, the improvement in strength made even Lin Yuan feel inferior. Of course, if Lin Yuan were to evaluate it, this deal was still a huge loss. Summoning a demonic beast clans cost 2,541 incense power, and upgrading from level 1 to level 2 required 2,000 incense power. The strength that was exchanged for these numbers could be said to be shockingly low. If it was a creature that Lin Yuan created through the soldier creation system, spending this amount of incense power would have raised its attributes to a terrifying level. The 4 demonic beasts leveled up one by one. They were all spear warriors and their attributes were similar to Flood Dragon 1's. It was clear that because they were all using spears, the experience gained from different weapons would naturally be different. This was a direction that was worth paying attention to. In the future, when cultivating demonic beasts, he could also test the cooperation between different types of soldiers. Father, may I ask what our next step is? Flood Dragon 1 looked at Lin Yuan with a fervent gaze. Temporarily stand by and wait for my next instruction. Lin Yuan glanced at Flood Dragon 1 and calmly replied. Although he didn't know what Flood Dragon 1 had done during this period of time, the 4 demonic beasts had accumulated enough experience to level up. Even if their levels were low and they didn't need much experience, they probably killed a lot. Although the Endless Sea was stronger than the Hengduan mountain range, the ecological balance was still a serious problem. Wantonly killing those ordinary sea monsters would also cause the lobster to be hostile. Lin Yuan didn't want to fight a demonic king realm monster, at least not now. Therefore, he could only pacify the demonic beasts and have them temporarily stand by. Yes, Great Father. Flood Dragon 1 replied loudly again with a fervent expression on his face. He took the initiative to cut off the connection with Lin Yuan. Chapter 701. After ordering the clan tribe to be on standby for the time being, Lin Yuan frowned again. As a passive skill, Lin Yuan had always kept the Eye of the God active. He also added a lot of demonic energy to ensure that the entire Willow Rock Sea area was within the range of the Eye of the God. If there was any disturbance around, Lin Yuan would know immediately. Just when he contacted Jiao Yi, the Eye of the God noticed that there was a group of demonic beasts with a bloodline higher than his in the Willow Rock Sea area. Bloodline higher than his? What did that mean? Although Lin Yuan was not a real dragon, he was a pure flood dragon species. It was nothing in the Eldritch world. However, in the Tianwu continent, Lin Yuan's bloodline was definitely a superior species of the dragon clan. For example, Ao Qian, who came from an extraordinary background, was suspected to be the descendant of the Dragon King of the West Sea Dragon Palace. There was a real dragon bloodline in her bloodline, but the concentration was not high. In terms of bloodline, Lin Yuan's bloodline was higher than Ao Qian's. The ruler of the Willow Rock Sea area, which was the lobster, could not oppress Lin Yuan's bloodline. This meant that the lobster's bloodline was not as high as Lin Yuan's. A creature of this level could already establish its own tribe near the evil dragon pool. If it was in the era when the dragon palace of the Four Seas stood proudly in the Endless Sea, this lobster would definitely be one of the top nobles in the Endless Sea. Therefore, Lin Yuan was confident that his bloodline's level was not low. There were only two possibilities for a creature with a stronger bloodline to appear in the Willow Rock Sea area. Either these demonic beasts came from the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Guild, or they came from the Dragon Palace of the West Sea, or even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Moreover, they appeared in the Willow Rock Sea area for him. Even if it was the former, Lin Yuan was sure that a demonic beast with such a strong bloodline was most likely a member of the Dragon Palace. This is troublesome. Lin Yuan closed his eyelids slightly and murmured in a low voice. He began to think about the possibility of running away. He really did not expect the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to have such a sharp nose. If something were to happen and his real body was stuck in the Willowstone Sea area, it would be a huge joke. The Great Yao of the Dragon Palace could not casually enter the Willowstone region. Even if the West Sea Dragon Palace wanted to, they could send their troops to flatten the Willowstone region at any time. However, the West Sea Dragon Palace dared not do so. When the Willow Rock Sea area fought against the West Sea Dragon Palace, their biggest advantage was that they were one of the subordinate species of the Dragon Palace. Now more and more subordinate species were dissatisfied with the Dragon Palace. Even the news that the Endless Sea was going to change its master had spread like wildfire. If the Dragon Palace still maintained its previous attitude to deal with the demonic beasts in the Endless Sea, the only result would be that the fierce tiger would be devoured by the pack of wolves. Blood Lady and the Red Crab clan behind her were quickly wiped out. The main reason was that Blood Lady had attacked the evil dragon pool. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not have the guts to attack the tribes of the Dragon Palace, it did not mean that anyone could challenge the authority of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, the Willow Rock Sea area was different. Although they had always been hostile to the West Sea Dragon Palace, they did not cross the bottom line of the Dragon Palace. Therefore, there was no problem for the two sides to attack each other. However, the West Sea Dragon Palace could not directly send troops to wipe out the Willow Rock Sea area. However, when it came to Lin Yuan and the undersea prison, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was not in a good mood. Lin Yuan did not even need to think to know that once his identity was exposed, the West Sea Dragon Palace would launch a series of storm-like pursuits to capture him. It would be extremely unfavorable for his next arrangement. Escape? Or disguise as an ordinary demonic beast? These two ideas kept colliding in Lin Yuan's mind. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas still dared to fight against the Great Old Ones, Lin Yuan did not mind cooperating with them at all. Just like when he had just arrived in this world, the system had issued the task of unifying the Stoneclaw Forest. At that time, Lin Yuan had no choice but to start with the Hell difficulty. This time, although the task of eliminating the Great Old Ones would not give Lin Yuan any territorial rewards, the system's rewards were enough to make all the hosts go crazy. With the help of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, the difficulty of the task would definitely be greatly reduced. Otherwise, if he had to face the Great Old Ones alone who could force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to give up the Endless Sea, it would still be a Hell difficulty start for Lin Yuan, who was alone with one dragon and 4 clan tribes. Mr. Hidden Dragon, your strength has attracted the attention of the higher-ups of the guild, so they sent experts to investigate you. Currently, the emissary has entered the Willow Rock Sea area. They hope that you can complete your preparations as soon as possible and report to the stronghold of the Sea Demon Guild. The octopus demonic beast that had met Lin Yuan before appeared again, and gently knocked on Lin Yuan's door. Got it. Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly turned cold, then he opened his mouth to reply. Previously, the octopus demonic beast had sent an information form for Lin Yuan to fill in. Hidden Dragon was the code name he had given himself, and it was suitable for any situation where he needed to show his membership of the Sea Demon Guild. Moreover, it was not targeted at Lin Yuan alone. Almost all the sea demons would not use their real names to register as members of the Sea Demon Guild. Like most guilds, the Sea Demon Guild only provided missions for its members. The purpose of the client was never a problem that the Sea Demon Guild needed to consider. As long as the client could afford the price, the Sea Demon Guild would put the client's request on the mission board. Stealing treasures, plundering, assassinating. There were all kinds of missions that the Sea Demon Guild did not mind. After all, their position was absolutely neutral, and there would not be any innocent sea demons who would treat them as a righteous partner. The sea demons' world was incomparably cruel. And the sea demons who came out to be mercenaries were even more bloodthirsty. Who would care about good or evil? Even if the members of two sea demon guilds had different opinions on the same mission, the situation of the two sides killing each other had happened more than once. For example, one side wanted to assassinate the target, and the other side was ordered to protect the target. Even if the target was a good friend, at this time, they would not hesitate at all and directly kill each other. Therefore, there were no sea demons who filled in their real information, because that would only bring endless disaster to themselves and the clan behind them. The title of Hidden Dragon, Lin Yuan, was already the kind that could be found everywhere. Unworthy codenames such as Lord of the Four Seas, King of the Sea Demons, and so on were endless. Anyway, no one really cared about such things. After all, there were more than one or two Dragon King in those coastal areas, right? Because of a title, they started a massacre. Even if the dragon palaces of the Four Seas joined forces, they could not bear the consequences. Chapter 702. Lin Yuan took a deep breath. Lin Yuan slowly walked out of his room. His gaze paused for a moment on the octopus monster's face in the corridor, and a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. Although it was the Siren Guild's higher-ups, their purpose was definitely not that simple. After all, he was a flood dragon. Even if he activated the golden body technique and turned his black scales into golden scales, it would still be the same. At least for now, he did not have any ability to disguise his bloodline aura. Therefore, an unknown but tyrannical flood dragon monster with tyrannical strength appeared in front of the Siren Guild's higher-ups. Those from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would never give up this opportunity to discover Lin Yuan. Therefore, so many monsters with tyrannical bloodlines came to the Willowstone Oceanic region. But what was more troublesome was that the octopus monster had suddenly appeared in the Siren Hotel. Lin Yuan, who had the Eye of God, had long discovered the appearance of those Dragon Palace monsters, so he could immediately make the choice of escaping this place or trying his luck to continue disguising himself. However, at this moment, the octopus monster had no intention of hiding from Lin Yuan. Instead, it had directly come to pick him up, which was equivalent to directly blocking his escape route and forcing him to go to the Siren Guild to face those Dragon Palace monsters. Want to leave now? Then he could only quickly kill the octopus monster, and then escape to other oceanic regions to conceal his identity. Only through an irregular movement path could he possibly get rid of the pursuers behind him. The time required would definitely not be short. The 3 months of deployment time given by the system might not be enough for him to solve the problems at hand. Mr. Hidden Dragon wants to ask why I suddenly appeared in the Siren Hotel. The octopus monster looked at Lin Yuan with a human-like fake smile on its face. Its tentacle-like right hand snapped its fingers, and then pointed to the counter on the first floor of the hotel. It said in a deep voice, "The Siren Hotel has so many arrays. Of course, there is also a simple two-way teleportation array. However, our guild's resources are limited. It is impossible to directly set up a teleportation array that can cross several oceanic regions like those big strongholds. This array can only maintain the short distance between the Siren Guild stronghold and the Siren Hotel." It seemed to have felt the killing intent from Lin Yuan's body. The octopus monster beast's gaze also became somewhat profound. Every Yao beast had their own secrets and did not like the feeling of being spied on. Thus, when they saw existences that suddenly appeared before them, they would show hostility. However, the killing intent emanating from Lin Yuan's body was somewhat excessive. It could even be said to be abnormal. One had to know that hostility and killing intent were two completely different things. I see. Lin Yuan nodded at the octopus monster beast, and didn't intend to continue this topic. Just like the octopus demonic beast could sense his killing intent, he could also hear something different from the octopus demonic beast's words. First of all, the Sea Demon Guild's stronghold had a teleportation array that led directly to the Sea Demon Hotel. Once the time was up and the octopus monster beast hadn't brought Lin Yuan back to the Sea Demon Guild's stronghold, then the Sea Demon Guild's stronghold might send a combat team to hunt down Lin Yuan. Coupled with the demon beasts from the Dragon Palace, Lin Yuan wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. Even if Lin Yuan could kill his way through the Willowstone Sea and escape, the Sea Demon Guild also had a teleportation array that could cross the sea. Their speed of travel was definitely much faster than Lin Yuan's physical body crossing the sea. Therefore, even if he could escape this time, a large number of teams would appear in the nearby sea to hunt down the flood dragon. Once he showed himself, he would be continuously hunted down. You're very smart. Lin Yuan suddenly said something off topic. Then the corners of his mouth slightly parted as he said with a smile, "But I'm not the only one with a secret, right? What do you think?" As soon as his voice fell, the octopus monster beast's expression suddenly changed. It looked at Lin Yuan with obvious surprise in its eyes. Although Lin Yuan's existence was intentionally covered up by the West Sea Dragon Palace, some of the arrangements made by the West Sea Dragon Palace were directional. For example, Lin Yuan's current identity was just a wandering sea demon who might have big trouble behind him. As a result, after it was reported to the Sea Demon Guild, the higher-ups actually sent higher-ups to investigate Lin Yuan. Moreover, almost all of these higher-ups were from the Dragon Palace. This had indirectly confirmed that the trouble Lin Yuan was avoiding was from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Although they didn't know what secrets Lin Yuan had, it was an indisputable fact that so many demon beasts from the Dragon Palace had come. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was no longer awe-inspiring, they still had their pride. They might have to smile obsequiously to the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Guild, but to existences like the octopus monster beast, they wouldn't explain their motives at all. Through these details, the octopus monster beast could guess that the trouble behind Lin Yuan came from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It was indeed worthy of the evaluation of being smart. But knowing this, it still dared to appear in front of Lin Yuan. It was already gambling with its life. Therefore, Lin Yuan's evaluation of the octopus monster beast was only smart. "So now, should I go with you to see those demon beasts from the Dragon Palace? Or should you obediently make way and report that I left the Willowstone waters for some matters and that my current whereabouts are unknown? You know, I'm not very stubborn. If something unexpected happens, I might say anything." Lin Yuan slightly tilted his head, the smile on his face becoming more and more ferocious. Although he hadn't been in the Willowstone waters for long, less than a day so far, Lin Yuan still noticed some clues when he observed the movements in the Willowstone waters with the eye of God. For example, the position of the octopus monster beast in the Willowstone division of the Sea Demon Guild was not high. It was just a receptionist to welcome newcomers, but its power in the Willowstone waters was not low. When there was no one around, its nominal superiors were respectful to the octopus monster beast, as if the status of both sides had been completely reversed. In addition, all the matters in the Willowstone waters that the Sea Demon Guild was responsible for seemed to be performing their own duties, but in fact, they were all decided by the octopus monster beast. As long as it said no, it was no. Therefore, this octopus monster beast definitely had a secret, and it was a big secret. After the expression on the octopus monster beast's face was slightly stagnant, it recovered its professional fake smile and said indifferently, "Secrets exist for all creatures. It's just a matter of whether it's big or small. What's more, a secret is no longer a secret. Instead of doing these disgusting things, I prefer not to pursue it. Just like how most of the sea monsters' hands are stained with blood. Even if we know, we won't leak it. After all, we are a guild, not the law enforcement department of the Dragon Palace. As long as we cooperate well, who cares about other things? Then, I wish us a happy cooperation in advance." The smile on Lin Yuan's face also seemed to become a professional fake smile. Chapter 703. I believe that we can work together happily, Mr. Black Jiao. The octopus wrapped its 2 tentacles in front of its chest and said with a smile, "In exchange, I can tell you my name, Horace Robin." Horace Robin. When he first heard this name, Lin Yuan's eyes showed a hint of confusion. But soon after, Lin Yuan's confusion turned into shock, and even some suspicion. A name was a creature's code name. A resounding name was equivalent to a magnificent resume. Just like when Chow Chow was mentioned, others would associate him with the Prime Minister, the Emperor of Great Way Lover. Cough. Currently, Lin Yuan had a bit of fame in the Sky Martial continent. For example, the Black Water Dragon King, the Northern Frontiers God, the Mad Python, and so on. Most of the names that came from outside the Northern Frontier were belittling and ridiculing him. But if Lin Yuan was placed in the Endless Sea, he was just a nameless existence. Other than the Four Seas dragon race that wanted to escape the Endless Sea and ascend to the Sky Martial continent, almost no demonic beasts had heard of his name. At most, they only had a slight impression, and it was not deep. The name Horus was the same in the Sky Martial continent. But if it was placed in the Endless Sea, it would be like thunder to the ears. The most famous demonic beasts in the ocean were array masters, illusionists, weapon refiners, and alchemists. They also dabbled in miscellaneous arts such as mechanisms. If one were to find an existence that could be mentioned in the same breath as Lin Yuan, it would be someone like Gue Guzi, who had learned a lot and was proficient in everything. But compared to Gue Guzi, who was both righteous and evil, Horus was more evil and narrower. Gue Guzi liked to use the world as a chessboard and heroes as chess pieces. He cultivated outstanding disciples to join the vassal states that were fighting fiercely for hegemony. He controlled the fate and survival of the vassal states, and even pushed the direction of history. Horus was the same, but different from Gue Guzi. He liked to control the fate of other living beings. Unlike Gue Guzi, who treated all living beings as chess pieces, he really liked to obtain pleasure from this kind of thing. Therefore, Guiguzi was a great academic scholar, who could stand side by side with Laozi and Confucius. He was the strategist saint who was loved and hated by all the feudal lords of the Spring and Autumn dynasties. On the other hand, Horus was just a villain who was hated by everyone in the Endless Sea. Wherever Horus appeared, it wouldn't take long for the people to be wiped out by the flames of war. If he was exposed to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, he would probably have to flee with Lin Yuan. The only difference was that Lin Yuan was being hunted, while he was being hunted. If you really are Horus, I think we'll have a great time working together. When his voice fell, Lin Yuan's eyes curved slightly, like a pair of crescent moons. Please. Horus took a step back, revealing a milky white screen of light behind him. Lin Yuan twisted his body and entered the light curtain. Horus also followed closely behind, and entered the light curtain. At the other side, 7 dragon bloodline demon beasts of different forms gathered in the Sea Demon Guild. They sat around a wooden table with all kinds of underwater delicacies on it, but the 7 dragon bloodline demon beasts didn't even look at them. Those sea demon beasts who weren't strong enough only glanced at the 7 demon beasts from afar, then turned their heads and walked out of the Sea Demon Guild. The atmosphere today was obviously much more solemn. After all, they were mercenaries who licked blood from the edge of their blades. Their eyes were the most important. Those vile images that looked down on others only existed in stories, used to raise the image of the protagonist. Which mercenary in reality didn't have sharp eyes. They could tell who they could mess with and who they couldn't mess with at a glance. Naturally, they wouldn't stay here and cause trouble for themselves. The few that stayed were not pure idiots, nor were they here to watch the show. They also predicted that something big would happen next, and wanted to see if they could join in and create some benefits for themselves. These demon beasts were very confident in their own strength. If they succeeded, they would be called bold. If they didn't succeed, they wouldn't hear how the outside world would judge them for being stupid. I say, second brother, isn't it just a Jiao dragon? Is there a need to mobilize so many people? A demon beast that was almost the same as a human, but had blue gills on both cheeks, looked at the 6 dragon bloodline demon beasts sitting beside him and asked helplessly. Originally, inspecting Lin Yuan was only its task. It did not know what happened to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. They actually sent a total of 5 members of the 9 sons of Long Jiuzi, and even the second-ranked Yazi came. Jiao dragon species, heterochromatic eyes, the strength of a river lord. It's completely the same as that black Jiao. We have to be careful. You know, this guy is related to the aberrant. Even that idiot Qianniu was defeated by this black Jiao. Do you think you can beat Qianniu? The one who spoke was a demon beast that had a human figure, but a dragon head. The 4 claws that were exposed were not human. Instead, they looked like the claws of a tiger or leopard. The blue-bearded demon beast was speechless. After a while, he said in a muffled voice, "Although Qianniu was defeated, I heard that he was defeated by the aberrant. It has nothing to do with that black Jiao, right? Furthermore, Qianniu wasn't at his peak at that time. If he had more than 50% of his strength, the Dragon Palace wouldn't have allowed him to retreat from the front line." Speaking of this, the blue-bearded demon beast paused and added, "I'm not trying to pick on you, but this time the Dragon Palace is really making a big fuss. They sent 7 of their dragon sons. God knows how many holes there will be on the battlefield for the aberrant to take advantage of. When we go back, I don't know how many people will die." Second brother frowned. He stared at the blue-bearded demon beast and said, "Making a big fuss? I don't need 3 moves to kill you, but Qianniu can suppress me for 200 years. Even if he is seriously injured and can't use 50% of his strength, killing you is as easy as flipping his hand. Even he was defeated. If that guy is really the Black Jiao, do you think you can go back alive?" Speaking of this, second brother changed the topic and said coldly, "How can you be sure that the aberrant who killed Qianniu has nothing to do with the Black Jiao? It is not by the Black Jiao's side right now." The blue-bearded demon beast pursed his lips but didn't dare to refute. Although they were one of the 9 sons of the dragon, Qianniu and Yazi were indeed very special existences. It could even be said that since Qianniu and Yazi were chosen as the 9 sons of the dragon 200 years ago, the other 7 sons of the dragon had more or less been replaced by new ones. However, these 2 firmly occupied the first and second positions of the 9 sons of the dragon. Whether it was the other 9 sons of the dragon or the aberration, none of them could threaten their lives and positions. Chapter 704. He's here. Without waiting for the blue-cheeked beast to continue speaking, Yazi's face flashed with hostility as it spoke in a deep voice. As his voice faded, the remaining 6 members of the Dragon 9 Sons all stood up and coldly stared at the teleportation light screen that had suddenly appeared. Looking at their slightly bulging muscles, one could tell that if there were any abnormalities, they would directly attack the existence on the other side of the light screen. "Lord Yazi, this is the registrant I reported earlier. You can call him the Hidden Dragon." The first to walk out of the light screen was Cyrus. At this moment, there was a faint smile on its twisted octopus face. Unknowingly, a strange fragrance spread in the Siren Guild's inn. If one did not distinguish it carefully, it would be easy to mix this fragrance with the fragrance of wine. However, at this moment, the 7 dragon sons were in a state of high tension, so the slightest abnormality immediately alerted them. As Yazi's expression changed, the 7 dragon sons all took out their weapons and looked at Cyrus with a gloomy expression. Cyrus's expression did not change at all. It smiled and waved its tentacles, saying indifferently, "My lords, there's no need to have such a big reaction. This is drunken whale fragrance." Among the 9 dragon sons, a petite demon beast with long purple hair, but the face of a worm dragon frowned slightly and interrupted Cyrus. "You know your stuff. As expected of Lord Fuxi." Cyrus murmured, and gave the purple-haired dragon a thumbs up before obediently shutting its mouth. Fuxi's expression turned cold as she said in a cold voice, "When you left, you didn't have the smell of drunken whale fragrance on you. You didn't deliberately dress up, did you?" "As far as I know, drunken whale fragrance has a strong hallucinogenic effect. In ancient times, the weak monsters developed this thing in order to hunt the descendants of the whale clan, the overlord of the sea. What are you trying to do?" "Lord Fuxi, please don't misunderstand. When I arrived at the Siren Inn, His Excellency the Hidden Dragon had something to deal with, so he asked me to wait for a while. I thought that I would be meeting you later, so I deliberately sprayed some drunken whale fragrance, hoping to leave a good impression on you. The current overlords of the Endless Sea are the Dragon Clan of the 4 Seas. Even the whale clan, which used to flourish in the past, is nothing but a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of the dragon clan of the four seas. This drunken whale fragrance has a miraculous effect on them, but it has no effect on the demon beasts of other clans. Cyrus waved its hand gently. Cyrus's skin was visibly flushed, as if it was a little scared and a little shy. I'm afraid that's not the case. The blue-bearded demon beast held a 16-sided prismatic hammer in each of his hands and said coldly, "The drunken whale fragrance is indeed only effective on demon beasts with the bloodline of the whale clan. However, as long as the formula is slightly changed, the drunken whale fragrance will become another kind of drug. It is a hallucinogen that is effective on any creature. Combined with illusionary techniques, it can achieve astonishing control effects." Speaking of this, the blue-bearded monster changed the topic and said coldly, "What are you trying to do?" "Huh." Cyrus let out a hollow laugh and did not reply. Instead, he silently moved to the side and made space for Zhang Heng. Immediately, Lin Yuan, covered in golden scales, slowly walked out of the teleportation light curtain. Yazzie sized up Lin Yuan and said coldly, "Black Jiao, put away your camouflage. Even if the scales on your body have turned golden, your special eyes can't fool us." Pfft. Lin Yuan sneered and shook his head. He said casually, "Camouflage? That's not the case. I never thought that I could fool you. Just like you said, my appearance can only fool some ocean demon beasts that don't have access to the secrets. Just with this pair of eyes, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas can recognize me. So I was wondering whether I should try my luck or fight my way out." "It seems that you are not very lucky." Fu Zue shook his right hand and held an iron folding fan in his hand. He said casually, "You probably didn't expect that the Guild of Sea Demons would have to go through the vetting process after you joined, did you? If it weren't for the fact that your background is unknown, and the Guild of Sea Demons reported your information to us, it would have been really difficult for us to catch you after you got the Guild seal." This did not mean that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could not find Lin Yuan after he became a member of the Siren Guild. However, Lin Yuan was in Willow Rock waters after all. The native forces here were at odds with the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. In addition, the Siren Guild was also a force that the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas were wary of. If Lin Yuan was determined to stay here, even the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas wouldn't be able to forcibly take him away. After all, that would be equivalent to declaring war on both Willow Rock waters and the Siren Guild. The Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas couldn't afford to add insult to injury. "No, I'm very lucky." Lin Yuan grinned, revealing a sinister smile, and said in a deep voice, "Because I thought of a third option." The 7 members of the 9 sons of the Dragon Clan were confused. The most bad-tempered blue-bearded beast snorted coldly and said with a sullen face, "I advise you to surrender. You know what you mean to the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. As long as you cooperate with us obediently, we can still entertain you, the ruler of the northern frontier, with good food and drinks. What if I don't?" Lin Yuan tilted his head and asked with a puzzled expression. "Then don't blame us for not holding back. We'll cripple you and bring you back." Fu Qian waved the iron folding fan in his hand and said with a hint of mockery, "Why do you have to do that? We're all dragon bloodline beasts and should be as close as a family. As long as you cooperate with us, the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas will be your backing. It's better than being a local tyrant struggling to survive, right?" At this point, Fu Qian paused, glanced at Cyrus and said indifferently, "Besides, we've seen through your little trick. The drunken whale fragrance won't work on us." "Who said that the drunken whale fragrance will be used on you?" Cyrus, who had been acting like a lackey before, suddenly grinned, revealing a sinister smile that was not inferior to Lin Yuan's. He said coldly, "For the smooth performance of the script, the 7 of you must stay clear-headed. Otherwise, this show won't be able to continue." The 7 sons of the Dragon Clan looked puzzled at the same time. They could not tell what was going on in the octopus beast's mind. He was just a receptionist of a small guild. Even if he killed him, it would be for nothing. Now that Lin Yuan had been exposed and their little trick had failed, if this octopus beast said that he was coerced by Lin Yuan, there would still be a chance of survival, right? Chapter 705. However, this octopus monster did the exact opposite. Was it not Lin Yuan who was at a disadvantage, but the 7 of them? What kind of joke was this? Putting aside the fact that there was an intermediate Demon King stage Yi, the other 6 members of the Dragon 9 Sons were also early Demon Kings. Moreover, they were all titled Demon Kings. Ordinary intermediate Demon Kings might not be a match for them. The Black Jiao was only a late Demon King. No matter how powerful he was only a half Demon King. Could it be that if they really fought, they would be the ones to lose? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas declared war on the Outer Sea monsters. Even the Sea Monster Guild was included in the attack. The Golden Shrimp Clan in the Willow Rock Sea and the Red Crab Clan in the Hazy Sea were all annihilated. Also, the Sea Monster Guild's stronghold in the Willow Rock Sea was destroyed. A large number of guild members died in battle. Under the combined efforts of the 7 Dragon Sons, all the resistance forces were annihilated. A total of 3 Demon Kings died in battle, including the Willow Rock Sea's master, the guardian of the Willow Rock Sea, and the head of the Sea Monster Guild in the Willow Rock Sea. Only a few survivors escaped and complained about the atrocities of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. What do the 7 lords think of this script? The corners of Cyrus's mouth were wide open, and the smile on its face was sickly. As a freak who liked to control the fate of other creatures and watch them get annihilated under its own arrangements, Cyrus was really having fun at this moment. These were the 7 Dragon Sons. The top battle sequence of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If they couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation, the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would be kicked out of the Sea Monster Guild. Then the Outer Sea Monsters would join forces with the escaped evil dragon and the Sea Monster Guild to declare war on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The entire endless sea would be engulfed in the flames of war. This could be said to be the biggest game Cyrus had ever played since it became famous. Don't even think about it. Fu Shi's expression changed. He roared and pounced forward. Patter. Cyrus snapped his fingers and stepped back into the teleportation screen, leaving behind a drawn-out voice. I've already said before that the drunken whale incense is not to be used on the 7 of you. Now that you know the script, I'm sure the 7 of you know how to cooperate with the performance, right? As soon as it finished speaking, the remaining monsters in the Sea Monster Guild all pounced on the Dragon Sons with bloodshot eyes. Even Negative Centipede, who had the fastest reaction, was intercepted by the 4 Peak River Lord level monsters and failed to break through the teleportation light screen to intercept Cyrus. Although the 4 monsters were no match for Negative Centipede, it was already over by the time Negative Centipede finished the battle. Lin Yuan and Cyrus stepped into the teleportation light screen. Bastard! Don't let me know who you are. Fu Qian cursed loudly, his expression ugly to the extreme. Was a Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was a Dragon Son Cyrus. Cyrus the Dragon Palace? Cyrus's of? Cyrus's Cyrus was? Cyrus was? Of. Lin Yuan did not plan to cooperate from the beginning. However, he did not plan to do it himself this time. In their perception, more and more demonic beasts began to rush to the battlefield. Although there was a mix of good and bad demonic beasts, there were still quite a number of demonic beasts with some strength. As the number increased, even if the 9 sons of the Dragon Clan worked together, there was still a lot of pressure. In the name of the Supreme Honorable, I'm here to proclaim the name of my master. My master's name is Cyrus Robin. You mortals like to call him Virtuoso. A controlled sea monster at the level of a river lord roared. It then recited the lines that Cyrus had prepared for it with a fervent expression. As soon as it finished speaking, the sea monster was hammered into a pile of minced meat by the blue-bearded monster. The 7 Dragon Sons stood back to back, on guard against the increasing number of attackers. The blue-bearded monster clenched its teeth and said coldly, Cyrus, that bastard. I was wondering why we couldn't catch that loach. It turned out that it secretly joined the Sea Monster Guild and was hiding in the Willow Rock waters. We're in big trouble this time. Cyrus didn't know how long they had been setting up this place, But it was certain that the monsters gathered here weren't simply controlled by the drunken whale incense and an illusion. Ordinary methods wouldn't be able to wake them up. Now they could either fight their way out or be trapped here until they died. As for capturing one alive, waiting for its control to be released, and then using it to proclaim the truth, it probably would not work at all. Cyrus, whose notoriety had spread throughout the endless sea, was known as the virtuoso. In terms of intelligence, it was definitely one of the top sequences in the endless sea. Naturally, it was impossible for it not to figure out such a simple countermeasure. Therefore, it was obvious that either this control method could not be released at all, or they could not take anyone alive. Those survivors were probably one of the backup plans that Cyrus had arranged. Once the incident here broke out, it would immediately spread throughout the endless sea. Even if all 7 of them died here, they would have to bear the blame for it. The 7 dragon sons did not stay on the battlefield against the great old ones. Instead, they appeared in the Willow Rock waters, which had always been at odds with the Dragon Palace. This matter could not be explained. Even if the existence of the Black Jiao was used as an explanation, the Sea Monster Guild would be dissatisfied and would quickly realize that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was planning to escape. When that happened, the Sea Monster Guild would probably take action personally and directly capture or kill Lin Yuan. They would block the escape route that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had arranged and force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to fight to the death with the Great Old Ones. This was in line with the common interests of most of the monsters in the Endless Sea. Since death was meaningless, no one would be willing to die. However, if they killed their way out, they would inevitably encounter the heavyweights of the Willow Rock waters. Even if they showed mercy, it would be meaningless. The controlled monsters were unreasonable and would fight to the death as soon as they met. Even if they showed mercy, they would have to beat the other party until they could not stand up. At that time, even if they did not attack, there would be other backup plans that Cyrus had arranged to kill these heavyweights and pour a basin of dirty water on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Think of a way to break through quickly and go back to discuss countermeasures with the Dragon King. Yazzie also showed the aura of a leader at this moment and said in a deep voice, "Don't show mercy. If you are caught, immediately self-destruct. Don't leave your body in the hands of the other party. At that time, you can still say that it's not our dragon sons. Otherwise, if Cyrus catches evidence, you will never be able to clear your name." Chapter 706. Cyrus was probably the only one who knew how long it had been hiding in the Willow Rock waters. After controlling the higher-ups of the Willow Rock waters through various means, Cyrus did not act immediately. Instead, it quietly operated the Willow Rock waters. On the surface, it was a receptionist of the Willow Rock waters branch of the Siren Guild, but in fact, it was the ruler of the entire waters. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan previously discovered that regardless of strength or status, all the higher-ups of the Willow Rock waters were wary of Cyrus. This operation was not because Cyrus had changed its nature. It was because the Willow Rock waters was too special. It was not far from the Sin Dragon Pool, and its strength was not weak. In addition, the Willow Rock waters had always been at odds with the West Sea Dragon Palace. It was simply the best hiding place for all the sirens who had a grudge against the West Sea Dragon Palace. As a matter of fact, the reason the Willow Rock Sea area was able to take root here was because of the demon beasts that shared a border with the West Sea Dragon Palace, and even the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. It was because of these demon geniuses that the lobster was qualified to challenge the West Sea Dragon Palace. In the beginning, the Willow Rock waters were only dissatisfied with the West Sea Dragon Palace. Later on, the conflict between the Willow Rock waters and the West Sea Dragon Palace had become a strategy for survival. Once the Willow Rock waters submitted to the West Sea Dragon Palace, the sirens who had a grudge against the dragon palaces of the Four Seas would immediately leave the Willow Rock waters even if they did not rebel against the lobster. By then, the strength of the entire waters would rapidly decline. In addition to the past grudges, even if the West Sea Dragon Palace did not suppress the Willow Rock waters, the surrounding sirens would not let go of this fat piece of meat. Over time, the Willow Rock waters had become a thorn in the flesh of the West Sea Dragon Palace that could not be removed. The biggest advantage of setting up here was that they could wait for an opportunity. For example, there was a great possibility of provoking the Siren Guild to be hostile to the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. It could even lead to an all-out war, directly damaging the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, or even destroying the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, a powerful force that had dominated the endless sea for many years. It was like a gambler who always wanted to bet big. As a master of fortune, Cyrus always wanted to plan a tragic war that would affect the entire endless sea. After a long period of operation, the Willowstone Sea area had become stronger day by day, but there had never been a suitable opportunity. When Lin Yuan appeared, Cyrus was like a shark that smelled blood. It immediately exposed its ferocious side, and broke out all its trump cards and reserves. The 7 sons of the Dragon King were trapped in a quagmire, unable to extricate themselves. Cyrus, on the other hand, was able to easily stay out of the matter and become a spectator watching the show. So, what exactly are you after? Lin Yuan glanced sideways at the excited Cyrus and asked in a low voice. He always felt that there was something wrong with this guy's brain. It was not the kind of mental retardation, but more like a mental illness. Even Lin Yuan had to admit that the play was arranged and directed by Cyrus, and he was just a cameo in the play. Moreover, he was only a minor character who left after a few lines. Of course, he was useful. But if it were any other demon beast in his position, as long as the conditions were right, they could have done the same thing easily. However, it was one thing to admit Cyrus's ability, and another to like it or not. For example, if a transmigrator entered a low-level martial arts world and became a feudal lord, and also obtained a system that allowed them to summon civil and military officials, when choosing a strategist, most people would choose those with good reputations, such as Zhuge Liang and Guijia. It didn't matter whether it was an open scheme or a conspiracy. However, no one would like people like Gue Guzi and Yao Guangxiao to become their advisors and strategize. Such advisors were too restless. Although they did not have the ambition to ascend the throne, they liked to go against the heavens and change fate. They treated the world as a chessboard and used heroes as chess pieces to play. They implicated many people who could have lived a peaceful life, and burned the flames of war to places that should not be ignited by the flames of war. Cyrus was such an existence. However, compared to people like Gue Guzi and Yao Guangxiao, it was at most a third-rate character. Gue Guzi used people as chess pieces and controlled the fate of a country. Yao Guangxiao started the game with a bad hand and played Emperor Yongle, while Cyrus could only hide behind the scenes and fan the flames. Although it guided the situation, it still depended on luck whether it would succeed. There was no need to elaborate on how big the gap was. For what? Well, for fame, of course. Cyrus was stunned by Lin Yuan's question. It paused for a moment and then said with a smile, "You and I are not mortals. Mortals only live once, and those who are capable want to live forever. Unfortunately, my talent is not good enough. My cultivation base has reached the limit of Demon King. It is not a problem for me to live for thousands of years. Immortality is too far away from me, so I can only seek immortality through other means." Lunatic. Lin Yuan curled his lips and did not comment on Cyrus's words. It doesn't matter if I'm a madman or a villain, I still have a reputation. 1,000 years later, maybe I'll be dead, but when the mortals talk about history, they can't ignore the existence of certain creatures. My goal is to become one of them. If I live my life in mediocrity, even if my cultivation base is unparalleled and unmatched, so what? Times were always changing. Only the existence that pushed the direction of history could be called immortal. Otherwise, who could prove that your existence was not made up in a story? I don't want to be a mediocre person, so I want to ignite the flames of war in the entire endless sea. I want everyone who mentions my name to be afraid, and I want countless later generations to know that Cyrus Robin once existed in this world. Cyrus's lips curled up slightly as it said with a smile. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment, then said expressionlessly, "You have the talent to become the cursed fate of 10,000 swords, so why do you want to be tainted with a bad reputation? People will curse you when they mention you. Is that what you want?" Xiao Yuan was a member of the royal family of the Myriad Swords dynasty, And he was a well-deserved valiant general in the past. When he was still alive, he could break through thousands of armies. Even when he was old and dying, he could still suppress people like Lei Qiuxing and Yan Xingqi, who did not dare to show the slightest bit of ambition. It was only after Qiao Yuan died of illness that the era of the Myriad Swords dynasty came to an end. You see, you can only think of Qiao Yuan. Cyrus sneered and said with disdain, "There are plenty of people who want to be good ministers. However, there are so many countries on the Tianwu continent. Other than Qiao Yuan, who is extremely talented, do you think you can find a second person who is famous in the 7 empires, and is known as the #1 general since ancient times? This path is too slow and inefficient, and it might not even succeed. It's not suitable for people like me." Chapter 707. Since you and I have achieved our goals, let's part ways here. Lin Yuan had no intention of pulling back a lunatic who had gone astray. After all, he had no evidence to prove that Cyrus was wrong. Putting aside this world where the 7 empires fought against each other, and where the guardians of the heavenly gates stood above the secular world. Even in the world where he lived in his previous life, the history of the Han people had been recognized for close to 5,000 years. The level of civilization in every era was enough to stand proudly at the top of the world. Every dynasty could be said to be filled with shining generals and talented people. But how many people could be called the pillars of a country? And how many people were there that could support the collapse of a great building? For example, the #1 general of the 3 Kingdoms period, Lu Bu. Whether it was at that time or later, he was said to be brave. If he was loyal to the Han dynasty, he might become an existence comparable to Wei Qing. But in reality, this sentence was just a form of flattery. If Lu Bu did not become a slave of 3 surnames and walk the path of loyalty to the Han dynasty, he might still be a famous general, but he might not be comparable to Wei Qing. But one thing was for sure. Lu Bu who was loyal to the Han dynasty would definitely not be comparable to Lu Bu who was a slave of 3 surnames. There were 3 generals at the end of the Han dynasty. All of them were existences who could suppress the feudal lords of the world. For example, Cao Cao and Yuan Shao had worked under these 3 generals. However, in terms of reputation, these 3 generals were too low. This was the price of being a failure in history. Even if Lu Bu was loyal to the Han dynasty, he could not change the direction of the Eastern Han dynasty's destruction. At that time, his reputation might not even be as good as the 3 generals at the end of the Han dynasty. Cyrus was not weak. In the endless sea, it was known as the virtuoso. However, if it walked the righteous path, it might not be able to catch up to Li Zhong. In the end, it would fade into the crowd. This was not a matter of ability but a matter of perspective. Therefore, in Lin Yuan's eyes, Cyrus was at most a second-rate strategist. Cyrus narrowed its eyes and sized up Lin Yuan. It suddenly smiled and said, "Amazing. I thought you would persuade me to do good, and then follow you back to the northern frontier, and become your right-hand man. If I persuade you to do good, will you do it?" Lin Yuan glanced at Cyrus from the corner of his eyes and asked faintly. Cyrus was silent. Lin Yuan was also silent for a moment before he opened his mouth to break the silence. He said indifferently, "In my hometown, there's a saying that it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. No matter what your nature is, since you've chosen to be a virtuoso, you can only force yourself to walk this path to the end. If you change your path halfway, the end result won't be very good. If that's the case, I've learned a lot." Cyrus nodded, an obscure light flashing in his eyes. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Your years of planning didn't go to waste. It even had an effect that exceeded your expectations. I also got the Siren Guild member seal from you. It's a win-win situation. Then let's go our separate ways." "Are you really not going to persuade me? Maybe I'll agree to it." Cyrus winked at Lin Yuan and said in a mocking tone, "I wouldn't have bothered if it were an ordinary organization trying to recruit me, but you're different from your northern frontier. A country where humans and monsters coexist. TSK. Even if those ancient sages came back from the dead, they wouldn't be able to do something like that. Yet you've succeeded. The current northern frontier has the potential to replace the Xinwu dynasty, and become one of the 7 dynasties. But I already have a right-hand man. I don't need your help. Lin Yuan shook his head. He went around Cyrus, who was blocking his way, and continued swimming forward. That's where you're wrong. If you want to build a country where humans and monsters coexist, you have to ensure that the monsters and humans under your command are always on the same level. It won't do for either side to have too much momentum. But look at the northern frontier now. Almost all the management is made up of humans. When you were at the northern frontier, you were able to suppress them and get them to live in harmony with the monsters. But can you guarantee that you'll always be able to suppress them? Can you guarantee that you'll always have the energy to take care of the northern frontier? Black Jiao, I'm very interested in the northern frontier, so I've done a lot of research. Even you, the Blackwater Dragon King, have been ostracized by the people of the northern frontier because of your origins as a monster. They'd rather praise Li Zhong, who you've supported, than admit that the northern frontier has always been under your control. As a monster, I don't care about the attitude of the monsters in the northern frontier toward humans, but I do care about the attitude of the humans in the northern frontier toward the monsters. Have you never thought that by the time you return to the northern frontier, the humans and the monsters will already be at war? Have you easily destroyed all the hard work you've put in over a year? Cyrus's words were somewhat bewitching. In a flash, it appeared in front of Lin Yuan again. Lin Yuan looked at Cyrus, who was blocking his way again, with a cold gaze. He didn't say anything, but waves of uncontrollable killing intent erupted from his body. I don't know how many people in the management of the northern region are loyal to you, but I'm sure that the reason why they don't dare to rebel against you is because you gave them a stage to show their abilities. That's more important than their respect for you. Black Jiao, I'm not trying to brag, but you do need me because none of the monsters around you are presentable. They can help you destroy cities and strongholds, but they can't help you govern the northern frontier. Restraining the monsters under you to maintain goodwill toward the northern frontier is already their limit. You need a group of management who are monsters. Even if they leave you, they won't be inferior to the humans in the northern frontier. Isn't that right? You want a prosperous and stable northern frontier where the 2 races coexist, and I want a stage where I can leave my name in history and let the future generations know of my existence. This is much more interesting and effective than manipulating the various forces to attack and destroy each other. It seemed that Cyrus was really interested in becoming an official in the northern frontier. When it said this, it had a fanatical look on its face. That's right. Even if you can't do it, destroying such an existence will make your name as a virtuoso in the history of the Tianwu continent. Lin Yuan replied coldly, I don't think you have the ability to control the monsters in the northern frontier. Don't talk about being an equal. If you leave me and don't use those dirty tricks, you'll only be toyed to death by Li Zhong and the others. What makes you think I'll recruit you and send a ticking time bomb to the northern frontier? Cyrus's breathing stagnated as it looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. It swallowed the rest of its words and looked at Lin Yuan, as if it was looking at a monster. Chapter 708. You have the strength of a demon king. In the northern frontier, you can be said to be a unique existence. However, strength is not enough for you to rely on. Back then, it was extremely difficult for the 7 empires to cultivate a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator. However, I have the confidence to make all the cultivators in the northern frontier step into the Heaven Dipper realm, and even higher realms within 3 years. Great strength is not something that is unattainable for the northern frontier. I only need 5 years for the northern frontier to catch up with any of the 7 empires. If I have 10 years, not to mention the other empires, even the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas won't be in my eyes. As for your wisdom and strategy, they are not worth mentioning in my eyes. Because with enough time, the northern frontier can defeat any opponent fair and square. The so-called schemes are just a joke in the face of absolute strength. You are used to playing tricks, using all kinds of drugs and illusions to control other creatures. However, in the end you only bring destruction. Political views such as people's livelihood and prosperity are too foreign to you. If you want to enter the northern frontier, you have to learn from the beginning. Since you have to learn from the beginning, Why do I have to recruit you? With the existence of the Northern Frontier Academy, it can provide me with an endless stream of talents every year. Moreover, they are talents born according to my plan, aren't they? As for the trouble you speak of, it has never happened before, and it will never happen in the future. Because your understanding of me is based on hearsay and rumors. Even if you have a high opinion of me in your heart, it won't be as high as those who have survived my baptism in the northern region. Not to mention that they can't take care of the northern frontier. Even if I am trapped in the endless sea, they will not dare to act rashly. Even if the news of my death reaches the northern frontier one day, it will be the same. Before they see my corpse with their own eyes and confirm that I am really dead, they will not dare to do anything. Instead of saying that I need a demonic beast force that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the humans in the northern frontier, it is better to say that even if the humans in the northern frontier unite, they can only submit to me. No matter how strong they are, no matter how rich they are, as long as I don't allow it, they won't be able to use it at all. This is the true face of the northern frontier. Do you understand? Lin Yuan stared at Cyrus indifferently, shook his head and added, "You're worthless to the northern frontier right now. Not only do we need to invest resources and time to nurture you, but if you're not capable enough and fail your studies, you'll also become a hidden danger to the northern frontier." When the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, what right do you have to join the northern frontier? Cyrus was lost for words again. It could only stare at Lin Yuan in a daze. After a long while, Cyrus sighed and said bitterly, "I understand." Since he had already said so much, it would be a waste of breath to say anything else. However, Lin Yuan changed the topic and said in a low voice, "As you said, it's true that I hope to build a nation where humans and demonic beasts coexist, so nurturing a demonic beast force is inevitable. Since you have the confidence to stand shoulder to shoulder with Li Zhong, the human king of the northern frontier, I'll give you a chance." Cyrus's expression changed, and its dejection was swept away. It looked at Lin Yuan eagerly. Only mediocre people did not like challenges. For those who were capable, any challenge was an opportunity for them to ascend to a higher realm. Building a nation where demonic beasts and humans coexisted was something that even the ancient sages could not do. If Lin Yuan could really accomplish it, then Lin Yuan would become an existence that surpassed the ancient sages. By then, all those who followed Lin Yuan as a leader, regardless of race or past, would be able to leave a mark in history as long as they played a role. This was much more interesting than becoming a virtuoso, who terrorized the endless sea. My request is simple. After today, the Willowstone waters will be destroyed, and the nearby sea demon forces will definitely set their eyes on this fat piece of meat. I want you to gather the survivors of the Willowstone waters, replace that lobster as the ruler, and establish this area as our base. I'll provide you with all the help I can, and what you need to do is to make this place stronger and more prosperous than before. If you can do this, I'll admit that I was wrong before. After I'm done with the endless sea, I'll bring you back to the northern frontier. By then, I'll make you the ruler of the demonic beasts in the northern frontier. You'll be on par with Li Zhong as the king of the northern frontier. He'll rule over humans, and you'll rule over demonic beasts. How does that sound?" Lin Yuan swayed his black tail, and a meaningful look appeared in his eyes. "By then, as long as it doesn't affect the development of the northern frontier, I don't mind how you fight with Li Zhong. There can only be one righteous god in the northern frontier, but there can be one or two kings, right? I'll do it." Cyrus's eyes shone with a strange light as it agreed loudly. As one of the top intelligent villains in the endless sea, Cyrus did not doubt its ability at all. Whether it was rebuilding the Willow Rock Sea region, or going to the northern frontier to fight with Li Zhong, Cyrus felt that it could win. Only such a challenging task could arouse the interest of a strong person. If Lin Yuan had casually arranged some simple tasks for it, and called them a test, Cyrus would have doubted Lin Yuan's sincerity. Therefore, the difficulty level was just right. Then work hard. Lin Yuan nodded at Cyrus. The flood dragons and their other minions flashed out from the side, and stood respectfully behind Lin Yuan. They don't have names for now. You can call them Flood Dragon 1 to Flood Dragon 4. Consider them your subordinates. They have the same bloodline as me. Although they're still very weak now, their growth won't be slow. Moreover, they're absolutely loyal to me. If I hand them over to you, they won't hesitate even if you ask them to die. Also, no matter how far away they are, they have the ability to contact me directly. Therefore, they'll report everything you do to me truthfully. At the same time, if you need my help, you can contact me through them. Perhaps I'll send you more helpers after a while, but for now, this is all I can give you. Lin Yuan smiled at Cyrus, although it looked a little ferocious. Not only did these minions have the same bloodline as him, but they were also fanatics. There was no doubt about their loyalty. As for the method of direct contact regardless of distance, it was called prayer in his previous life. Believers could contact their God even if they were separated by the heavenly realm and the human realm. Moreover, the Tianwu continent was an incomplete world. There was only the human realm. Therefore, as long as they prayed, they would be able to contact Lin Yuan. Chapter 709. Cyrus did not know that even if it completed Lin Yuan's plan, it could not escape the fate of being thrown aside or even destroyed as a tool once it lost its value. From the very beginning, Lin Yuan had no intention of sincerely recruiting Cyrus. It was not that Lin Yuan was indifferent, but there were countless bloody examples in the history books of his previous life. He told Cyrus that a leopard cannot change its spots was a nice way to put it. To put it bluntly, it meant that a leopard could not change its spots. As a villain who liked to use underhanded means to control other living beings, set up a trap to destroy a certain force, and seek pleasure in the process of bringing despair and destruction to other living beings. It hoped that its bad name would spread across the endless sea. To it, being positive and upward was not related at all. Cyrus' current attitude might be that it really wanted to become the pillar of the northern frontier, but its past experiences would keep chasing after it and corrode it again, turning it into the master of destiny of the past. If a villain could turn over a new leaf so easily, there would not be the saying that a prodigal son would turn over a new leaf. It was not that the northern frontier could not withstand the wind and rain, but there was no need for it to cause trouble for itself. Just as Lin Yuan said before, Cyrus had too many things to learn. Otherwise, it would not be able to establish itself in the northern frontier in the future, let alone fight against Li Zhong. Once Cyrus suffered a setback, even it could not guarantee that there would not be a bottom line for its methods. After leaving the four spawns with Cyrus, Lin Yuan departed for another region of the sea. Although the information was not verified, the Siren Guild was not a strict organization. As long as Lin Yuan had the Siren Guild seal in his hand, he was a member of the Siren Guild. Therefore, he had achieved his goal in the Willow Rock Sea. Now Lin Yuan could go to any region of the sea. Even if he wandered around the West Sea Dragon Palace's territory, he would not have to worry about attracting the attention of the West Sea Dragon Palace, unless the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had the ability to fight against the Siren Guild, the Outer Sea Monsters, and the Evil Dragon faction. As for face, the Siren Guild might have given it to him in the past, but certainly not now. Although Cyrus was behind the destruction of the Willowstone Sea, the Siren Guild would definitely not believe it. After all, Cyrus had concealed its identity for a long time in order to set up a trap. The outside world thought that it was already dead. In addition, the Willow Rock region was not weak. With 3 demon kings guarding it, it was impossible to destroy the Willow Rock region without sufficient combat strength. In addition, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas couldn't possibly expose Lin Yuan's existence. If they did, the Sea Monsters Guild would cut off their escape route to the Martial Heaven continent. Combined with Willow Rock Sea region's destruction and Long Jiuzi's appearance, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas wouldn't be able to wash away this scapegoat. Even the Siren Guild had to believe that it was Cyrus' handiwork. The Willow Rock region had been thriving quietly for so many years. Suddenly, 7 Long Jiuzi's members were attracted and destroyed. How could there be such a coincidence? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could at most deny that the members who went to the Willow Rock region were Long Jiuzi's members. However, the Sea Monsters Guild could find out who went to the Willow Rock region to investigate Lin Yuan's identity. Regardless of whether they were Long Jiuzi's members or not, the identity of the Dragon Palace's members could not be washed away. Even if the Sea Monsters Guild did not directly declare war on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for the sake of the big picture, they would no longer maintain a friendly attitude towards the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas like before. At this time, as long as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas dared to touch a member of the Sea Monsters Guild, they would immediately receive a storm of attacks from the Sea Monsters Guild. Other than making life more difficult for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, there was no other meaning. 2 days later, West Sea Dragon Palace. Wearing a purple robe, the West Sea Dragon King looked at Yazi and Fusu kneeling in front of him. His body kept trembling, as if he was forcefully suppressing his anger. He kept pursing his lips tightly, worried that he would have all Long Jiuzi's members killed as soon as he opened his mouth. Dragon King, we know that we have made a big mistake this time. Please protect us on account of our loyalty to the Dragon King. When this matter is over, we will personally kill Cyrus and avenge today's humiliation. Fusu's body was covered with all kinds of scars. At this moment, when he was kneeling on the ground, his forehead was tightly pressed against the luxurious spiritual stone tiles of the Dragon Palace. It was as if he had completely abandoned his pride as Long Jiuzi. The Sea Monsters Guild was a behemoth that was not inferior to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas chose to keep the peace and hand them over, they would definitely have no way to survive. Even if the Dragon Palace only expelled them out of consideration for old time's sake, they would be ambushed by a large number of Sea Monsters Guild powerhouses halfway. Protect? How can I protect you? The Dragon King of the West Sea gritted his teeth. His vertical pupils were filled with resentment. He said coldly, "You Long Jiuzi are really arrogant. This king only asked you to investigate if the flood dragon that suddenly appeared in the Willowstone Sea was the Black Jiao. Even if it was the Black Jiao, you just had to come back and report. The Dragon Palace will naturally make arrangements." Well, the 7 Long Jiuzi directly came to the Willowstone Sea and fought over a disagreement. Now the entire Willowstone Sea has been destroyed. In just a few days, the Dragon Palace annihilated 2 sea monster clans and destroyed an area of the sea. Even the branch of the Sea Monsters Guild was not spared. With such a monstrous disaster, how can I protect you? The Dragon Palace was not in a good situation at the moment. Even if Long Jiuzi was tricked by Cyrus, the commotion caused by the sea monster clans were like sharks that smelled blood. All kinds of thoughts arose in their minds. It was likely that they would assemble an alliance to suppress the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and demand an explanation. Otherwise, they would start a war directly. These sea monster clans did not know what the aberrant was. They only knew that the aberrant was very strong. Now that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had been defeated, they even had the thought of abandoning the Endless Sea and going to the Tianwu continent. Naturally, there was no doubt about who would rule the Endless Sea in the future. Leaving a good impression on the new boss, how could such a thing be rejected? As long as there was an opportunity, the sea monster clans would not be slaughtered by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas like thousands of years ago. Instead, they would really assemble an alliance to attack them. The current situation was quite unfavorable for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Fu Qian and Yazi did not speak. They just maintained their kneeling posture. If the Dragon Palace did not protect them, they would definitely die. So what if they were scolded? It's not that the Dragon Palace does not care about old friendships, but this matter cannot be done. The only thing this king can do is to send you away. The West Sea Dragon King did not receive a reply. He waved his hand impatiently and growled. Chapter 710. Is the Dragon King really so heartless? Yazi's expression changed as he said in disbelief. As the top fighting force of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, Long Jiuzi had outstanding military achievements. Whether it was against the aberrations, the Dragon Palace's subordinates, or the outer sea monsters, Long Jiuzi was the absolute vanguard. Long Jiuzi's combat power was indispensable in sieging cities and breaking through enemy lines. Although demon kings were not rare in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, even if they had a title, They could barely be considered as the top figure in the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. With the death of Long Jiuzi, there would soon be a newcomer of similar strength to replace him. However, the biggest difference between newcomers and veterans was never strength, but experience in dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. Even an ancestral dragon was infected by the aberrations and turned into a monster, but Long Jiuzi was able to become the main force against the aberrations. Only the members of Long Jiuzi knew how much blood, tears they had to endure, including the dead Qiu Niu. Now that the 7 Long Jiuzi were expelled, it was equivalent to directly breaking up the team. The newcomers would barely be able to handle it. Therefore, Yazi could not understand why the West Sea Dragon King would expel them without hesitation. This did not make sense. Yazi, you are strong and Fushi is smart. The two of you were the first to break through the encirclement and escaped back to the West Sea Dragon Palace. But did you pay attention to the news of the other members of Long Jiuzi? Just before you came back, Chao Feng, Pu Lao, and Fushi were all killed. Fushi was still okay. Before he died, he detonated his demon core and demon power, dying together with a group of pursuers. But Chao Feng and Pu Lao were different. Chao Feng ran the slowest and was chased by a group of people. He couldn't fight against them and eventually died of exhaustion. Not only did he leave behind a complete corpse, he even had the proof of identity of Long Jiu's son. That bastard Pu Lao was even worse. Although he didn't get stuck in the mud, he was caught red-handed by the Sea Demon Guild. Under the Sea Demon Guild's methods, he confessed everything that he shouldn't have. Combined with what the survivors said and what Chao Feng said, he was still killed by the Sea Demon Guild in anger. Do you think you can still be saved? The Dragon King of the West Ocean waved his hand and said coldly, "The fact that I haven't captured you and Fu and handed you over to the Siren Guild is already out of consideration for your contributions to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. These two bastards." Yazi's face changed again. It was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. Although Long Jiu's identity wouldn't be made public, the entire Endless Sea knew his identity. Previously, no one thought that Cyrus would set up such a big trap in the Willowstone Sea. Naturally, they didn't hide their identity in advance. But this detail didn't matter. After all, if they detonated their monster core and monster power, even a rare treasure would be destroyed on the spot, let alone a small identity. However, Yazi had never thought that Chao Feng and Pu Lao would actually not listen to him. Even when they could not escape, they still refused to self-destruct. In the end, not only did they end up in such a state, they even caused the others who had escaped to die. "Sai, let's run." The Dragon King of the West Ocean looked conflicted. He gritted his teeth and said, "You caused such a big trouble. Logically speaking, you should be sent to the evil dragon pool to be suppressed to death. But the Sea Demon Guild will definitely not let this go. When the time comes, they will definitely come to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and ask for you to be handed over. Even if I want to protect you, I can't." I know." Yazi lowered his head dejectedly, not daring to look directly into the eyes of the Dragon King of the West Ocean. "Letting you go now is for the good of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. After all, the aberrations are running amok now. We are lucky to be able to withstand them. We won't dare to go to war with the Sea Demon Guild again. If they come to capture you, do you think I should hand you over or let the entire dragon race of the Four Seas be destroyed in order to protect you? Although the Sea Demon Guild is powerful, they are still a loose organization. If they want to cause trouble in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they will need time to gather strength. You can still leave now. If you leave too late, the Sea Demon Guild will stop you. However, we are of the same race. Although this king can't protect you, he won't sit by and watch you die. I will soon put you into the Evil Dragon Register. When that time comes, you can go and find Ao Siphon. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is afraid of the Sea Demon Guild and starting a war with us, the evil dragons are different. They don't have to face the aberrations. Even if the Sea Demon Guild comes, as long as Ao Siphon is willing to protect you, at least you can still live normally in the seas controlled by the Dragon Palace." The West Ocean Dragon King sat back on his big chair and said with a gloomy gaze, "If Ao Siphon is not willing to protect us." Fuzhu, who had been silent, slowly raised his head and asked, Survival was the instinct of all living creatures. Not only humans, most living creatures would have a strong desire to survive and potential when they were between life and death. If it were any other day, Fuzhou would never dare to speak to the West Ocean Dragon King like this. After all, the West Ocean Dragon King had already done everything he could. Not only did he not capture them and hand them over to the Sea Demon Guild to appease the monster's anger, but he also pointed out a way for them to live. This was already a great kindness. After all, the Dragon 9 Sons were the top fighting force of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Other than the Dragon King of the Four Seas, any member of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would have to obediently address them as Lord. Therefore, no matter what happened, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would definitely try to protect the members of the Dragon 9 Sons. It would be a lie to say that the Dragon 9 Sons directly went into hiding after the destruction of the Willowstone region instead of escaping back to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The West Ocean Dragon King had already gone to this extent, and had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Sea Demon Guild. Although he did not directly protect them, he responded to the Sea Demon Guild with his own attitude. He expressed that although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would not directly protect the 7 Dragon 9 Sons, they would definitely not sit by and watch the Sea Demon Guild attack them. Although they would not let the two sides directly go to war, it was inevitable that they would become enemies. However, Fuzhou was not satisfied. As the evil dragon lord, Ao Sifin was not afraid of anything. He would not even take half a step back in front of the Dragon King of the Four Seas. However, if he became enemies with the Sea Demon Guild for the sake of a few Dragon 9 Sons who were loyal to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, Ao Sifin would probably have to think twice. After all, although Ao Sifin was an evil dragon who had committed unpardonable crimes and had now formed the evil dragon faction to publicly challenge the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, he was not a fool. He would not become a tool for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for no reason. That was why Fuzhou suddenly opened his mouth and said this. Chapter 7:11. Shut up. Yazi coldly glanced at Fuxi and immediately scolded him in a low voice. Even the West Sea Dragon King said that Fuxi's brain was good, so Fuxi was naturally not a reckless and ignorant demon beast. There was only one possibility for him to suddenly say such words. He was scared. However, no matter how scared he was, he should not have rashly offended the West Sea Dragon King, right? Even the bad-tempered Yazi had to admit that although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not directly protect them, they were willing to risk the Sea Demon Guild's hostility to find a way out for them. They were indeed very benevolent. Now he was forcing the West Sea Dragon King to find a way out for them, which was to roast the West Sea Dragon King on the fire, to be able to suppress the experts of the dragon race of the Four Seas, and become one of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. How could he be easy to deal with? If the West Sea Dragon King got angry, not to mention giving them a way out, it was not impossible for him to directly capture them and hand them over to the Sea Demon Guild. Wasn't this King courting death? Fuxi was scolded by Yazi. Although he trembled and did not continue speaking, he still stared at the West Sea Dragon King with his hopeful eyes. Clearly, he had not given up and wanted to obtain a feasible way out from the West Sea Dragon King. It's fine. The West Sea Dragon King gently raised a dragon claw and sighed faintly. Whether it is Ao Sifin or 8 Distresses, although they are listed in the Evil Dragon Register, they are still part of the Four Seas dragon race. Previously, both of us were too radical in our views on this matter, so we ended up in such a situation. Now that the Four Seas dragon race is in danger, any power is extremely precious. This king has always wanted to mend the relationship with the evil dragon camp. Let this king think about it, think about it. Seeing that the Four Seas Dragon King was deep in thought, Fuxi's eyes turned. He gritted his teeth and said, Ao Sifin and I are of the same generation, so I have some understanding of him. This fellow values fairness the most. It is not difficult to get him to protect us, and it is not difficult to even borrow the power of the evil dragon camp to deal with the aberrant. However, the prerequisite is that we have to give the corresponding reward. In my opinion. Before he finished speaking, Fuxi felt Yazi and the West Sea Dragon King's eyes on him. Gulp. Fuxi swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He could vaguely feel a strong murderous intent from Yazi's eyes. In fact, Yazi not only wanted to kill Fuxi, but also wanted to tear apart Fuxi's damn mouth. Even if you want to die, you don't have to do this, right? When the West Sea Dragon King was in deep thought and did not speak, it meant that he did not want to continue this topic and gave them a chance to sneak away quietly. Fuxi had not finished speaking, but Yazi realized that Fuxi wanted to sell some confidential information of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in exchange for Ao Siffin's protection. Of course, this kind of thing could not be said openly, but strictly speaking, as the leader of the evil dragon camp, Ao Siffin had been rescuing the evil dragons in the evil dragon pool to expand his own forces. Therefore, he was not completely unfamiliar with the secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The things that the Dragon King could come into contact with were not enough to arouse Ao Siffin's interest. Therefore, Fuxi wanted the Four Seas Dragon King to take the initiative to provide some secrets to win Ao Siffin's favor. But the secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, and they were secrets that only existences at the level of the Dragon King could come into contact with. How could it be so easily handed over to them? Did this bastard really not want to leave the Dragon Palace of the West Sea alive? It's not impossible. Unexpectedly, the West Sea Dragon King did not flare up on the spot. Instead, he seriously considered Fuxi's suggestion. This scene made Fuxi and Yazi feel relieved. They each let out a sigh of relief and showed an expression of being given a new lease of life. There are many secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. This king does know a lot of them, but he will definitely not hand them over to the two of you. Even if this king is willing to tell you, it will be useless. Ao Siffin will not easily trust you. In addition, once the secrets are leaked, the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will launch a hunt for you. Are you sure you want to attract the attention of the powerful dragon race when you have offended the Siren Guild? This king only said that your suggestion is feasible because the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has an important matter to attend to. Originally, they did not plan to involve the evil dragons. However, at this moment, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has offended the Siren Guild because of you. I'm afraid that they will immediately withdraw their defense line. Those Dragon Palace members who are traveling in other seas will also have to be recalled. Otherwise, they may attract the attention of the powerful Siren Guild. Therefore, this king can allow you to leak the Black Jiao's identity to Ao Siffin and use the power of the evil dragon camp to continue the hunt for the Black Jiao. Remember to tell Ao Siffin that if she can capture the Black Jiao for us, we will immediately destroy the evil dragon register and accept them back into the dragon race of the Four Seas. When we return to the Tianwu continent, we will also give them a large area to live and reproduce. The West Sea Dragon King crossed his two dragon claws in front of him and said with narrowed eyes, "Remember, we can allow them to not participate in the war against the mutants." However, the Black Jiao has become the last retreat for the dragon race of the Four Seas. If he dares to do anything secretly, there will naturally be a spy who will contact me. When that time comes, don't blame us for ignoring the big picture and perishing together with him. This subordinate will remember. Fuxi's face lit up and immediately replied in a deep voice, "Go." The West Sea Dragon King waved his dragon claws and said with a complicated expression. At the same time, in the Qi Gorge Sea region, Lin Yuan and a dragon man in a golden robe stood opposite each other. After a while, the dragon man opened his mouth and revealed a ferocious smile to Lin Yuan. He said in a deep voice, "The Black Jiao suddenly appeared in front of me. It shouldn't be a coincidence. Therefore I have to praise you. The Dragon King's ability is probably more terrifying than we expected. Even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, or the Sea Demon Guild would not be able to find the hiding place of the evil dragon in such a short time. I'm not here to be polite." Lin Yuan revealed the same ferocious smile and said, "I have not had a good time in the endless sea. Whether it is the outer sea or the deep sea, the hostility towards me is too great. There are demon beasts who want to kill me at the slightest provocation. In addition, my temper is not good. There is no reason to take a beating and not fight back, is there?" "I understand." The smile on the dragonman's face slowly disappeared. He said with a serious expression, Can I understand that the Blackwater Dragon King wants to borrow the power of the evil dragon to take revenge on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? If that is your intention, please forgive me for refusing. Chapter 7:12. This is really strange. According to what I've seen and heard, the relationship between the evil dragon and the dragon tribe of the Four Seas has always been bad. Even if I didn't come to visit, you wouldn't let go of the chance to attack the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. So, it doesn't make much of a difference whether I come or not. But after I came to visit, you actually rejected me directly? I was curious about the reason. It couldn't be that the dragon palaces of the Four Seas had been hiding their strength all this time. They were secretly hiding the power that could overturn the endless sea in an instant, right? If that's the case, I can understand your concerns. In the face of such a force, not to mention the Siren Guild, even the outer sea monster beasts and your evil dragon won't be enough, right? Lin Yuan's words were obviously more teasing. Obviously, it was impossible for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to hide a power of that level. Although the Great Old Ones were troublesome, it was actually not a big deal to the system. Because of the rules, the system could not give the host an impossible mission. Therefore, although all the hosts in the universe were carrying out a large-scale mission together, there would definitely be corresponding adjustments according to the differences in each world. At the same time, it also meant that the system believed that all the hosts had the ability to eliminate the Great Old Ones. This also meant that the power displayed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was probably already at its limit. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas really had a trump card, then they wouldn't have been forced into such a situation. There was even a possibility that they were putting on an act. For example, the arrival of the 7 sons of the Dragon Palace in the Willowstone Sea region seemed to be a deployment of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, but perhaps only they themselves knew that the mobilization of the 7 sons of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas meant a huge sacrifice on the front lines to fill the gap. The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas doesn't have any hidden trump cards. The only thing they have is the ancestral dragons who are still in hibernation. So even the Sea Monster Guild alone can force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas into a desperate situation, let alone us joining forces. The dragonman's face turned gloomy as he said, "But no matter what, we evil dragons are still members of the dragon race. It's fine if we fight on a small scale, but when it comes to destroying the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, we won't do such a thing." If it was the Blackwater Dragon King, would he also participate in the war to destroy the Hengduan Mountains? The Dragonborn's words left Lin Yuan speechless. The evil dragon was at odds with the dragon race of the Four Seas. This was something that the entire Endless Sea knew. Lin Yuan had thought of this as well, which was why he had come all the way to Evil Dragon's temporary headquarters. He hadn't expected to be rejected by Evil Dragon before he could even ask. This was indeed a difficult question to answer. Just like Lin Yuan, he was very clear that the world he lived in his previous life was a real low-level martial world. Those incomparably powerful people, or demons in myths and legends, had long been obliterated in the long river of history. Even if there were survivors, they would hide in some corner and not dare to show their faces. Not to mention an existence like Hongjun, who was eyeing the heavenly Tao fragment that existed in his previous world. Even if there were cultivators or demonic beasts in the Tianwu continent, who transmigrated to his previous world, they could be said to be invincible. The existence of the demonic king realm could even force the humans to take the risk of self-destruction. Hongjun still hadn't found the coordinates of his previous world. However, one day, if Hongjun were to open the gate of heaven to invade like he did to the Tianwu continent, the humans would definitely lose the war. However, when that day came, would Lin Yuan be able to go against his conscience and join Hongjun's side to suppress the humans in his previous world? Obviously, it was impossible. Now the evil dragon was facing the same problem. The once prosperous dragon palace of the Four Seas was now in imminent danger. As long as they were willing to add fuel to the fire, and incite a war between the Sea Demon Guild and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they could instantly destroy the colossus that was above them. Even if the Sea Demon Guild wasn't powerful enough, Those demonic beasts from the outer sea who were eyeing covetously wouldn't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, if that happened, the dragon clan of the four seas would be destroyed. Would the evil dragon be able to live a good life? Soft-hearted. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a cold light. He said with a cold face, I didn't expect the great leader of the evil dragon to be so benevolent. As the leader of the evil dragon clan, isn't your biggest goal to destroy the dragon palace of the four seas to clear the name of yourself and the evil dragon under you? Once the dragon clan of the four seas is wiped out, you will be the new dragon clan of the four seas. I said, your goal is different from ours. Please forgive me for refusing. The dragonborn chuckled and shook his head. He gave his answer again. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment. Suddenly he smiled and said, You can't say that. Although I didn't expect the evil dragon to have feelings for the dragon clan of the four seas, that's because we haven't interacted before. However, my eyes can't be wrong. Based on the West Sea Dragon King that I've interacted with, he definitely won't miss this opportunity to scheme against you evil dragons. Do you believe me? Ha. The dragonborn smiled disdainfully. He shook his head and said loudly, Whether it's the evil dragon clan or the dragon clan of the four seas, in essence they are all members of the dragon clan. Just like how we don't want the dragon clan of the four seas to be destroyed, how could the dragon clan of the four seas be willing to let us wither? You can't be thinking that we can save so many evil dragons every year, because the dragon palace of the four seas is really useless, right? Speaking of this, it paused and lowered its voice. Now that the endless sea is facing a great calamity, everyone knows that the dragon palace of the four seas has provoked a strong enemy. However, we the dragon tribe are the masters of the endless sea. We can't just watch the outsiders run amok, so we took the initiative to take on the task of resisting them. However, although the dragon palace of the four seas is strong, they still don't have a good chance of winning against those monsters. Lin Yuan understood what the dragonborn meant. It was just like how the aristocratic families always liked to place bets in troubled times. Brothers from the same family, no matter how close they were, would never pledge allegiance to anyone in troubled times. Unless it was the will of the people, or they were invincible, the descendants of the aristocratic families would pledge allegiance to different monarchs. They would attack each other or even kill each other personally to raise the status of the family, or to protect the bloodline of the family in troubled times. If there were invaders in the endless sea, the dragon palace of the four seas might not be their match. If the evil dragon palace of the four seas became the enemy of the dragon palace of the four seas, even if the dragon palace of the four seas was defeated in the future, the dragon clan's bloodline could still be left in the endless sea. It sounded good, but in fact it wasn't the case. These evil dragons were being used as meat shields by the dragon clan of the four seas. Chapter 713. Lin Yuan stretched his body and looked at the dragonoid meaningfully. He said calmly, I have yet to ask for your name. Aosifin. The dragonoid pondered for a moment. Although it could not understand Lin Yuan's meaning, it still reported its name. Lin Yuan was known as the Blackwater Dragon King. Although he was disliked by the dragon clan of the four seas, it was undeniable that even without the support of the dragon clan of the four seas, Lin Yuan had still managed to develop his own force. Even if their forces were not the same, Lin Yuan was now the leader of a force. Therefore, the necessary respect could not be lacking. There were always some people in the world who thought that strength was the truth, and that they could easily trample on anyone's dignity. But this was not right. Because it was not the truth that strength could dominate everything. It was a cruel law that all things were born from. Only the creatures at the bottom of the food chain who needed to struggle for survival would think that strength was everything. After evolving to a certain extent and giving birth to their own civilization, they would develop mutual respect. Just like the saying in Lin Yuan's previous life, when two countries went to war, they would not kill the envoys. This had nothing to do with national strength or personal relations. Even if there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, the stronger side would not wantonly bully the weaker side. That was not only bullying the weak, but also disrespecting themselves. Ao Sifan understood this, and so did Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan. When he introduced himself, Lin Yuan looked at Ao Sifan with a meaningful gaze. He knew who Ao Sifan was. It was once a prodigy that the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas valued greatly. However, because it adopted a group of orphans during a war, it was viewed as a heretic by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Because Ao Sifan was a direct descendant of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, not to mention its extraordinary talent, it could inherit a large and rich territory even if it just ate and waited for its death. Moreover, it insisted on giving the orphans it adopted the right to inherit. If that was all, it would be fine. After all, geniuses always had special privileges. However, among those orphans, not a single one had the Dragon Clan's bloodline. This also meant that after Ao Sifan died of old age, most of its territories would be inherited by demon beasts without dragon bloodline. The problem of bloodline could indeed be solved through intermarriage, but the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas was no longer the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas that had just descended on the Tianwu continent. They believed that the bloodline of the Dragon Clan was the noblest bloodline in the world. Some of the Dragon Clan's demonic beasts with insufficient bloodline density were not even qualified to intermarry and mate with the Dragon Clan's descendants, let alone mating with ordinary demonic beasts that did not even have a trace of bloodline. Moreover, this was not just a matter of bloodline. To put it simply, the deep sea area controlled by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was completely sealed off. Only dragon bloodline demon beasts could enter and leave. If some demon beasts without dragon bloodline became the lords of the deep sea, it meant that the demon beasts in the outer sea had a reason to reach into the deep sea. Thus, the initial debate turned into a battle. In the end, Ao Sifan was expelled from the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, and the orphans it adopted were all killed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Not long after, Ao Sifan established the Evil Dragon Camp. It believed that the Dragon Clan had embarked on a path of self-destruction, and was determined to reform the system and prejudice of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The results were remarkable. In the past few years, more and more evil dragons had become evil dragons, and the Evil Dragon Camp's strength grew rapidly. If not for a few true dragons that were still sleeping in the Dragon Palace to protect the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would have already had a new Dragon King. But while Ao Sifan's strength grew rapidly, it was not without a price. In the beginning, the Evil Dragon Camp only had one Evil Dragon Camp. Even after absorbing a few evil dragons, their style of doing things was mostly based on Ao Sifan's opinion. But as their strength grew rapidly, the Evil Dragon Camp quickly gave birth to many factions. There were reformists like Ao Sifan, and some simple ambitious people, spies from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, etc. Ao Sifan was still the leader of the Evil Dragon Camp in name, but in reality, the Evil Dragon Camp was no longer under Ao Sifan's control. Once an order was given, other than his own troops, if he wanted to mobilize the other evil dragons, he would have to hold a meeting to discuss it. He would even have to give up a portion of his benefits to hire the other party to do things for him. It was similar to the overseas Hong sect in Lin Yuan's previous life. It was originally a group of Chinese people that worked together to fight for benefits. But later on, because of its size, it was targeted by some people with ulterior motives. The original dragon head had become a symbol, and every faction had their own right to speak and independence. Some of the branches were even controlled by foreigners or even foreigners. The similarity between the two was that there were external forces in charge, and they were no longer as pure. But Ao Sifan's name was still like thunder. After all, the world in Lin Yuan's previous life was a low-level martial world. If one wanted to suppress the heroes, they had to rely on their reputation, ability, their parents' generation, and their own connections. But in the Tianwu continent, the strength of an individual could directly influence the direction of a large force. The northern frontier had Lin Yuan, and he always hid many trump cards, making people unable to see his real power. Countless evil spirits and monsters only dared to hide in the dark. The Evil Dragon Camp had Ao Sifan, but he didn't need to use any tricks or create mysteries. He used his own strength to suppress the Evil Dragon Camp. Looking at your eyes, you seem to know who I am. Ao Sifan and Lin Yuan looked at each other for a while. Ao Sifan suddenly chuckled and said, "That's good. The Endless Sea doesn't have someone like you. They either don't know who I am, so they act like they don't care about me. But when they know who I am, they start to smile carefully. Or they know who I am, but they only treat me as a freak. They don't want to be friends with me sincerely. They just want to complete their mission or do their work." Speaking of this, it paused and continued. "Previously, you were directly rejected by me and asked for my name. Obviously, you have another excuse. Then let's hear it. But before that, can you answer a question for me? How did you find this base?" I asked around. Lin Yuan smiled. He could find the base of the Evil Dragon Camp, because there were many members of the Evil Dragon Camp in the Blackwater of the Nether Realm. With the information and memories of the Evil Dragon Camp, it wasn't hard to find a few bases of the Evil Dragon Camp. Also, it's not that I have another excuse. My original intention hasn't changed. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes sparkled. He said, "I heard that you created the Evil Dragon Camp to change some bad habits of the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. You wanted the dragon tribes of the Four Seas to abandon the bloodline prejudice. But it's not realistic. I think after trying for so long, you have given up on this idea. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been assimilated by the dragon palaces of the Four Seas." Chapter 7:14. Me? Give up? Be assimilated? Ao Sifan lifted one of its dragon claws and pointed at its own face in confusion. It said coldly, "Lin Yuan, I came to see you because I respect you, but it doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. Although I don't know why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas values you. You're just an outsider to me. You're not qualified to point fingers at me." 36 years ago, the Evil Dragon Camp fought with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. They fought bloody battles for 2 months. Even if we don't count the subordinates of the Dragon Palace, the Dragon Tribe of the Four Seas with the direct bloodline lost more than 8,000 people. And this was only the first battle that made you famous. After that, the Evil Dragon Camp fought more and more fiercely and crazily, as if they wanted to perish together with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. So I think highly of you, because you're much stronger than those guys who only have the bloodline of the Dragon Tribe. They're called dragons because of their bloodline and appearance, but you're called a dragon because of your strong will. Maybe you don't understand, but in my hometown, dragons have become legendary creatures. But countless people still like to use dragon as a title to promote someone's strength and extraordinariness. This kind of strength is not the strength of strength, but more of a kind of recognition of the world. 36 years ago, Ao Sifan was still a dragon in my eyes, but the current Yuhihi. Lin Yuan shook his head in disdain as he spoke. He said in a deep voice, "It's just a facade. How can you think that the Evil Dragon Camp is just a backup plan prepared by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? How ridiculous is that? Could it be that you, Ao Sifan, have forgotten the purpose of establishing the Evil Dragon Camp?" Ao Sifan was speechless. It could only stare at Lin Yuan blankly, not knowing how to answer Lin Yuan. Of course, it knew why it established the Evil Dragon Camp. It was just that 36 years had passed. For a long-lived species that was born with a long lifespan, although it still had a lot of time, its temperament was constantly suppressed and suppressed. The Dragon Clan's heaven's pride had been polished into a blunt knife by various existences with ulterior motives. Now Lin Yuan's words were like a blow to the head, directly stunning Ao Sifan. Back then, when I established the Evil Dragon faction, I only hoped that the dragon race of the Four Seas would become more prosperous. Only by eliminating those unnecessary prejudices and outdated ideals would the dragon race of the Four Seas be able to continue existing in this world. My goal is only to make the dragon race of the Four Seas better. Ao Sifan's voice became softer and softer, as if its confidence was not enough to finish its sentence. "That's good." Lin Yuan laughed. People who pretend to be asleep can never be woken up. If Ao Sifan avoided this topic, it meant that Ao Sifan was beyond saving. But now, it seemed that this heaven's pride of the dragon race was unwilling to give up its ideals. However, under the constant polishing of reality, It had lost its edge and started to fade into the crowd. The two of them sat opposite each other. After a moment of silence, Lin Yuan took the initiative to speak. You established the evil dragon faction in the beginning. Your goal was to make the dragon race of the Four Seas better and more complete, not to become a refuge for the dragon race of the Four Seas. The advantages and disadvantages of your strategy of absorbing the evil dragon faction are obvious. The advantage is that your strength has grown at an astonishing speed. From the beginning of guerrilla warfare to the establishment of various bases, and the beginning of positional warfare with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, this is enough to prove this point. Speaking of this, Lin Yuan paused again and said in a deep voice, but the disadvantages are also very obvious. Those who violated the rules of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, and were thrown into the evil dragon pool, are all characters who can take charge of their own affairs. However, they are not the same as you. They have their own ideas and personalities. They are innocent and sinful. When you mix them together, you are splitting yourself. It can be said that you brought this upon yourself. Is it my fault? Ao Sifan raised its head and looked at Lin Yuan with a puzzled face. It didn't know what to say at this moment. It just wanted to help as many evil dragons as possible because in its eyes, those who violated the rules of the Dragon Palace didn't deserve to die. It was more because of the rules of the Dragon Palace itself. For example, it just adopted some children who had lost their parents because the dragon race of the Four Seas invaded the Endless Sea. What was wrong with that? As a father, it wanted to give its wealth to its children. What was wrong with that? How innocent were those children who died in the hands of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? How innocent was it, the heaven's pride of the dragon race, in the past? Was it because those sea monsters didn't have the dragon race's bloodline that it was a crime for them to live in the deep sea? Since ancient times, it wasn't the only innocent one among the dragon race of the Four Seas. Even worse things had happened before. It only wanted to save these evil dragons and hoped that these evil dragons could borrow its strength to save more evil dragons to strengthen itself. When its strength reached a certain level, even the ancestral dragons would have no choice but to back down, right? Of course it's your fault. Lin Yuan firmly confirmed Ao Sifan's self-judgment. He didn't want to comfort it at all. In fact, your biggest mistake is that you still have mercy at this moment. In my eyes, the Dragon Palace has reached the root. If they don't experience a destructive attack, they will never be able to correct it. Your idea is just an idea. Ao Sifan lowered his head as a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. Lin Yuan also kept silent, giving Ao Sifan enough time to think. To be honest, he was trying to fool Ao Sifan. However, he was willing to give Ao Sifan enough time to think, because this problem had troubled Ao Sifan for dozens of years. If it couldn't figure it out in the past, it wouldn't figure it out now unless it could travel through time and see the real answer with its own eyes. However, Ao Sifan was, after all, an ambitious person who could establish the evil dragon camp. It was still suspicious by nature. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to be patient. If he kept urging it and didn't want to give it time to think, Ao Sifan wouldn't choose to believe him even if it couldn't figure it out. No, the evil dragon camp has been accepted by the dragon race of the Four Seas. As long as we can become the new dragon race of the Four Seas. At that time my idea will be realized, right? Ao Sifan was like a drowning person who grabbed a life-saving straw. It stared at Lin Yuan with cold eyes. It seemed that it didn't want Lin Yuan to give a negative answer. It also didn't want to say what the sentence after as long as was. Tomorrow is 2021. I wish you all the best in the new year. I wish you all the best and have a meteoric rise. Chapter 7:15. As long as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is destroyed by the aberrant, you will become the new dragon race of the Four Seas. As the supreme dragon of the evil dragon camp, you will be the irreplaceable chief. By then, can your idea be realized? Lin Yuan grinned and showed a ferocious smile at Ao Sifan. From the beginning of the statement to the final rhetorical question, Ao Sifan stared at Lin Yuan, panting heavily. His vertical pupils were red. Lin Yuan stared back at Ao Sifan and said coldly, The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas won't be destroyed so easily. Even if they lose this battle, they will leave enough backup plans to ensure that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will still be the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. At most, they will have a new master. The higher-ups in the evil dragon camp must know about these backup plans, but you don't. Do you really not know who these backup plans are for? Ao Siffin's expression changed gradually. According to the original plan, he could even win without doing anything. Even though it was funny that he had been fighting with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for so many years, and even the spies of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas began to occupy high positions in the evil dragon camp, he was still just an evil dragon. However, because of a sudden war that no creature knew why, he had a chance to win without doing anything. The unspoken words were, as long as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was destroyed, victory is won by yourself. You want to fight for hegemony by relying on charity and luck. You will have a miserable end. Lin Yuan slowly raised his head. His eyes seemed to have passed through endless time and space. Suddenly, they became deep and profound. He said, "If you don't want to end up like that, I advise you to pull yourself together. I don't ask you to join hands with me, but I hope you can seriously consider my suggestion. Because before I came here, you have been abandoned. You don't even have equal information. Do you still want to wait to reap the benefits?" Why was the evil dragon camp infiltrated by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? In the beginning, it was indeed one of the backup plans prepared by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. After all, the Great Old One's terrifying mental infection ability was right there. It was impossible for them to tolerate any normal creatures walking in their territory in a normal state. This was because their original goal was to destroy this world, destroy the so-called New Era, and turn everything into the old era they were familiar with. Only then could they take back everything they had and turn back into normal creatures. Or were they normal in the first place? For Lin Yuan, who had been influenced by his previous life and firmly believed that everyone was equal and that man could conquer the heavens, wouldn't he be a typical outlier in this feudal dynasty controlled by the aristocratic families? Wasn't Lin Yuan assimilating the normal people of this era and pushing the world towards the situation he was familiar with? However, these secrets were not known by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. This was because the Great Old Ones appeared in the West Sea, because they wanted to use this opportunity to land on the Sky Marshall continent and directly threaten the northern frontier. However, their distorted appearance and terrifying infection ability made it impossible for them to communicate peacefully with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Facing this group of unknown monsters, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could only fight to the death. Until now, the Great Old Ones were getting stronger and stronger, and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was getting weaker and weaker. After suffering setbacks time and time again, it was normal for them to misunderstand the other party's intentions. Therefore, they split off from their race and became the enemy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, becoming the evil dragons. This was to ensure that when the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was defeated and destroyed, these evil dragons would be able to rely on the new master of the Endless Sea and continue the bloodline of the dragon clan. This was a very normal thing. In fact, for a world where martial strength reigned supreme, there was no difference between humans and demonic beasts. If one wanted to conquer an area and establish one's own power, one would have to experience a bloody storm. Even the powerful dragon clan of the Four Seas couldn't directly become the master of the Endless Sea. Now, only a small part of the Dragon Palace was derived from the combination of the dragon clan of the Four Seas and the sea demonic beasts. Most of them were the sea demon clans that dominated the Endless Sea in the past. They had once fought a bloody battle with the dragon clan of the Four Seas. For example, the drunken whale incense that Cyrus had used in conjunction with the illusion was targeted at the whale clan. The whale clan was a powerful clan that was not inferior to the dragon clan of the Four Seas in terms of strength and size. However, the whale clan's consumption of food was also very terrifying. Sea areas like the Willowstone Sea could only feed one member of the whale clan, even if the whole area gathered its strength. Some weaker sea areas didn't even have the ability to feed one member of the whale clan. The whale clan's population was even rarer than that of the dragon clan. This was the only reason why the Whale clan lost to the Dragon clan of the Four Seas, and gave up the position of the overlord of the Endless Sea. In addition, the Whale clan had a one-track mind. Therefore, the Dragon clan of the Four Seas, who were afraid of their power, directly exterminated them. Perhaps there were still some descendants of the Whale clan in the vast Endless Sea, but it was already difficult to maintain the population. They were no longer a threat to the rule of the Dragon clan of the Four Seas. With a classic example in front of them, the Dragon clan of the Four Seas naturally wouldn't repeat the same mistake. Therefore, the remaining evil dragon camp was not weak. Except for a few high-level members who knew the truth, most of the evil dragons were sincerely hostile to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, as the war progressed, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas also realized that even if the evil dragon camp was split, it would be useless, because the aberrant wouldn't allow their existence, even if they had never done anything to fight against the aberrant. Painstakingly planned, but it was useless? How laughable was that? However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas didn't expose this matter. Instead, they planned another way out. They planned to sacrifice some members of the Dragon clan to delay the aberrant, so that the main members of the Dragon clan of the Four Seas could retreat to the Tianwu continent to ensure the survival of the aberrant. At least, the evil dragon camp didn't know much about the aberrant, so it could be said that the information of the two sides was not equal from the beginning. The evil dragon camp treated the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas as a sacrifice and a selfless elder. However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas treated the evil dragon camp as a stepping stone and a bait to attract the attention of the other sea demon clans. If they didn't take this opportunity to attack the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, would they wait to be played to death by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? Supreme Dragon Head, there are 2 dragon bloodline demon beasts outside who want to see you. They claim to be former members of the 9 Sons of the Dragon. Their code names are Yazi and Fushi. We said a few perfunctory words, and then came in to ask if you want to see them or not. An evil dragon that seemed to have the bloodline of the sea monkey ran in, not afraid of Lin Yuan's existence. Chapter 7:16. Former members of the 9 Sons of Dragon? Yazi and Fu Liang? What are they doing here? Ao Sifan murmured to himself, the confusion in his eyes growing. Originally, Lin Yuan's previous words made his brain feel like it had been stirred into a paste. Now, a new problem had appeared before the problem was solved. The great dragon of the evil dragon camp was directly stunned. He even subconsciously turned his head and glanced at Lin Yuan, as if he had been fooled into thinking that he was lame. Lin Yuan looked indifferent and said indifferently, "The calculation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is good, including Yazi and Fu Xia. A total of 7 members of the Dragon Palace participated in the destruction of the Lushur Sea area. 2 of them died during the escape process, and the whereabouts of the remaining 5 members of the Dragon Palace are unknown. Where do you think they went after escaping?" Ao Sifan only pondered for a moment this time, then said in a deep voice, "They caused a great disaster, which is equivalent to offending the Siren Guild and all the Siren clans that are hostile to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Then their first reaction would be to return to the Dragon Palace, because the other forces would not dare to, nor can they protect them. The only ones that can let them live are the behemoths that can wrestle with the other forces." Ao Sifan was not stupid. The reason why it was being played by Lin Yuan was that the information they had was not equal. Lin Yuan knew that the aberrations were the great old ones, and he also knew what their purpose was. Although he did not have much contact with the great old ones, Lin Yuan knew more about them than the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, which was fighting against them. Now, the news of the 7 Sons of Dragon wreaking havoc in the Willowstone region had spread throughout the entire deep-sea region under Cyrus' arrangement. Knowing the inside story, Ao Sifan's reaction was naturally very fast. After a while, Ao Sifan's face suddenly turned gloomy, and he said coldly, "What does the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas take my place for? These Sons of Dragon caused a great disaster, and they directly put me here. Should I clean up their mess for them? Supreme Dragon, why don't I go and chase them away?" The evil dragon who delivered the message also looked anxious. Although the evil dragon camp wasn't as powerful as the Sea Monster Guild and the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, it was still a famous force in the Endless Sea. Of course, it was well informed. Previously, it hadn't figured out what was going on. But now, it seemed that the dragon palaces of the Four Seas wanted them to take the blame. Lin Yuan, you owe me an explanation. Ao Sifan looked coldly at Lin Yuan, his voice filled with killing intent. It was true that Long Jiuzi had wreaked havoc in the Willowstone Sea region. However, those who were well-informed knew that Long Jiuzi had gathered in the Willowstone Sea region because an unknown water dragon demon beast had suddenly appeared in the Willowstone Sea region. Moreover, it was highly valued by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If Long Jiuzi had not seen Lin Yuan before, he might not have thought much of it. But after seeing Lin Yuan, Ao Sifan quickly realized that Lin Yuan was that mysterious water flood dragon. Lin Yuan must have some secrets. That was why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas paid so much attention to him. More importantly, Lin Yuan had just come here to disturb Ao Sifan's mind. And then 2 former members of Long Jiuzi had come here. It was hard for Ao Sifan not to suspect that Lin Yuan did not have any plans in this matter. Even the appearance of the 2 former members of Long Jiuzi was probably part of Lin Yuan's plan. Especially the conversation before. He gave Ao Sifan just the right amount of time to think. Then he deliberately made things mysterious to arouse Ao Sifan's curiosity. However, before Ao Sifan could ask, a subordinate came in to report that Yizi and Fuzi had come to see Ao Sifan. It was not that Lin Yuan didn't want to answer Ao Sifan's question, nor that Lin Yuan didn't give Ao Sifan time to think. It was Ao Sifan's subordinate who came in to report that the members of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had come to see Ao Sifan. It was hard for Ao Sifan not to suspect that all this was deliberately arranged by Lin Yuan. However, where did Lin Yuan get the ability to influence the thoughts of the higher-ups of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? I will give you a reasonable explanation, because my explanation has already come to you, isn't it? Lin Yuan smiled indifferently, as if he couldn't feel Ao Sifan's killing intent. No living creature, including himself, was willing to be schemed against by others. However, the world was like this. Everyone could unknowingly become a chess piece in the hands of others. Without knowing it, they could play their role in the chess game of others. Even those almighty beings were not necessarily an exception. What do you mean? Ao Sifan was startled again. Squinting its eyes, it asked. I can assure you that from today onwards, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas intends to share some information with you. However, this information absolutely has nothing to do with the aberration or the future situation of the Endless Sea. If I'm not wrong, they will ask you to protect it. Sigh. Before Lin Yuan could finish, Ao Sifan sneered and interrupted Lin Yuan. She said coldly, if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas made a mistake, why should the evil dragon camp pay for it? It's true that I have taken in the evil dragon camp who made a mistake. However, why should I protect this kind of idiot who has brought disaster to the entire tribe? You will. Lin Yuan sighed and then said with a determined face, because they will tell you my identity. In addition to protecting them, they will also ask you to send your evil dragon subordinates to search for me in the entire Endless Sea. I can guarantee that since the internal division of your evil dragon camp, no cooperation has reached the scale of this time. Because the spies may have contacted the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they will fully cooperate with this matter. As long as it is in order to search for me, as long as you open your mouth, you will understand what a real great dragon is like, not like now where everyone is doing their own thing. So, Ao Sifan yawned and said with a disdainful face, what can the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas give me? Do they want all their spies to be loyal to me so that I can control the evil dragon camp one more time? Not necessarily. Lin Yuan smiled and shook his head. Even if they give you the authority, it's just a facade. As I've said before, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has prepared a backup plan to deal with you. Thus, whether you control the evil dragon camp or a part of it, it doesn't matter to them. Then Lin Yuan kept silent for a while. His smile gradually became bitter as he continued. They are sure that you can't refuse the order. The bargaining chip is me. Thus, the conversation between you two will be about the aberration. The Dragon Palace of the West Sea will also reveal the current situation to you. At that time, you won't hesitate to capture me in exchange for the last chance to survive. Chapter 717. Eosiphan's expression changed slightly, but there was no change in its eyes. It was as if the change in its expression was a performance made to match Lin Yuan's words. After a moment of silence, Eosiphan said slowly, "What you mean is that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has already made arrangements. We, the evil dragons who were seen as the hope of our race, have become the sacrificial lambs in the eyes of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It is because of your appearance that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas made a concession and decided to accept us and give us a chance to live?" "That's generally correct, but there's one thing that's ridiculously wrong." Lin Yuan grinned and said with a smile, "In this world, I'm afraid no one understands the aberrations better than me. Now that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has realized that they are no match for us, they plan to retreat to the Tianwu continent. They want to borrow my power to plan a place for the dragon race of the Four Seas to reproduce. However, this is not a path to survival. It's just delaying the arrival of despair." The goal of the Great Old Ones was to destroy Lin Yuan's northern frontier. However, the new era that Lin Yuan started had already let countless people see the benefits. According to Zhang Xiu's information, the various empires had already begun to secretly implement the new laws of the northern frontier. They planned to use this to suppress the power of the aristocratic families and sects, ensuring the longevity of the imperial family. It was hard to say what the future would be like, but at least in this period, the new era was no longer opened by Lin Yuan alone. Even if the northern frontier was destroyed, the era was still on the path of evolution. Therefore, the goal of the Great Old Ones was never the northern frontier. From the moment they were born, they wanted to destroy the world. When everything was over, they would become ordinary creatures and reignite the fire of civilization, returning everything to the era they were familiar with. At that time, they would still be heroes, gods, and rulers. The other party was not a demonic beast that fought for territory, but the Great Old Ones that wanted to destroy the world. The strategy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was to give up the endless sea, but the other party would definitely not stop. Retreat to the continent? In theory, it was possible. However, not long after, the aberrations of the entire endless sea would attack the continent crazily, and finally destroy the world that was changing into a new era. Supreme Dragon Head, the two outside are waiting anxiously. Another evil dragon who came in to report muttered softly. However, his gaze was always on Lin Yuan. A cold light flashed in his eyes, emitting an ominous aura. Boom. The second Sin Dragon that came in to report didn't even have time to open its mouth before its head was smashed by Lin Yuan's tail. That's why I said that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is rotten to the core. Without a single nirvana of destruction, they will never learn what reverence is. Lin Yuan withdrew his blood-stained tail and looked at Eosiphan again, saying, "Supreme Dragon Head shouldn't mind if I teach your subordinates a lesson, right?" After he said that, the monkey-like evil dragon shrunk its head and didn't dare to look straight at Lin Yuan. The evil dragon that was killed by Lin Yuan did not have a high cultivation base. At most, it was at the 4th level of the River Lord realm. If it was a demonic beast that grew up on the mainland, it would never dare to stare at a higher level with that kind of malicious gaze. Survival was an instinct engraved in the blood of all living beings. Just like how beasts would scatter their excrement in their territory to make weaker creatures take a detour, only creatures that wanted to die or those with low intelligence would provoke existences that were far stronger than themselves. This rule of survival didn't seem to apply to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. In other words, they blindly believed that they were backed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if the demonic beasts without any background were stronger than them, they would still have to be respectful to them. This was the result of the abnormal strategy of the dragon race of the Four Seas. It was the mentality that the members of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas were nurtured by countless subordinates of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, this rule didn't apply to Lin Yuan. Therefore, this Sin Dragon died before it even had a chance to speak. A husky bared its fangs at a tiger, and got what it deserved. Lin Yuan, you've gone too far. Ao Sifin glanced at Lin Yuan coldly and said, even if you're a spy raised by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, it's not up to you to discipline. What? Are you tired of being the Blackwater Dragon King of the Northern Frontier, and want to join my Sin Dragon camp? If you are willing to join us, not to mention a spy, even if you want to kill one of my trusted subordinates, as long as the reason is right, I will accept it. But now, as an outsider, you have to give me an explanation, don't you think? Don't be pretentious with me. I won't tell you what you shouldn't know. It won't do you any good to know. Lin Yuan looked at Ao Sifin and let out a long breath. He said in a low voice, the problem of the aberrations must be solved. It doesn't only involve the dragon race of the Four Seas. If they are allowed to grow, the entire world will die. You don't want to become one of those weird things, do you? What exactly are the aberrations? Ao Sifin seemed to not understand Lin Yuan's words and asked again with a cold face. Opportunity. A chance for you to rule the dragon race of the Four Seas. The tip of Lin Yuan's tail gently touched the ground, and he said indifferently, not only you, I will publicize the problem of the mutants to the entire endless sea. Believe me, running away will never solve the problem, it will only make the problem bigger and bigger. Either you cooperate with me to get rid of the mutants, and I will help you plan and let you get everything you want, or we will all go our separate ways and play the game together. Harumph. After keeping silent for a while, Ao Sifin snorted and said coldly, you go and hide in the backyard first. I will go out and meet Yazi and Fuchio. If what they say is different from what you have expected, you will know what pain is. The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had many spies in the evil dragon camp. For example, the second evil dragon who had broken in to report. Thus, the news of Lin Yuan's appearance here couldn't be hidden. Not only did Yazi and Fuchio know that Lin Yuan was here, but the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had also received the news. In Ao Sifin's eyes, Lin Yuan was only at the late stage of the River Lord realm. He couldn't even defeat the early Beast King realm warriors. Naturally, he didn't pose any threat. Thus, it thought that Lin Yuan was gambling. He was gambling that Ao Sifin would stand on his side. Once there was a mistake in any part, Lin Yuan would become a prisoner instantly. As you wish. Lin Yuan's face was still expressionless. It seemed that he had a card up his sleeve, but it also seemed that he was crazily staking everything on this one throw. Ao Sifin could not see what Lin Yuan was thinking simply from his expression and look. She could only snort coldly again before walking out of the door. She was ready to meet Yazi and Fu Shi, the two former members of the 9 Sons of the Dragon Clan who had caused a huge disaster. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.